Going live. Going live. You're live. Hello. Greetings, one and all. It is Saturday, the 22nd of June, 2024. Hello, everyone. How are we all? Caradog is just getting the coffee. And we are here. And I am putting an SSD back in a laptop so I can turn it on and make it ready for selling, because I sell secondhand laptops. That's a thing that I do, and I'm just pottering, really. Hello, hello. Aha, the people are here. Very good, very good. All right. It's the man himself. Thank you very much.
Uncoffee.
Uncoffee. One down. Right. There's basically no plan today, so we're just gonna talk tech, as per the title, basically. So prepare your subjects, people. Imagine if you could sell merch, maybe through a site or something. I know some dickhead on Discord started a thread and was just like, here's all that information that you keep saying you're going to look up and then don't. And I was like, wow, way to be passive-aggressive, dickhead. And that person's name was DJ or something like that. So Caradog just stuck his head round the door. Was like, where is he going with this anecdote? Oh, and here's Caradog with the passive-aggressive pint of water, because he came in and was like, how are you? And I was like, tired and a little bit hungover, if I'm honest. He's like, have you considered drinking water? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's not a bad idea, if I'm honest. No VR repairs. Not yet. I've got a...
Repairs in VR.
Nah. I've got a VR controller that I need to attempt a stick replacement on, and I'm kind of putting it off at the moment. But then also I've just been doing other stuff. In an absolute shocker, I think I've finished building all of the slimes that I had ordered. And I'm like, fine.
Fair enough. You did it.
That's a Chromebook. What did you do? Did you buy a Chromebook? Are you okay?
Yes. We're approximately 10,000 suns.
Oh, I see, yeah. I mean, it's summer, so, you know. Alright. Have you ever ordered a costly item like 5G USD and had a... I don't know what any of that means, Greg, I'm not going to lie. Quote shirt that says, I don't want to talk about this anymore. That's actually a really good idea, JD. That would be a good one if we did a Two Guys Talk Tech t-shirt, which is not a terrible idea. And like that could be the gag that's on it. It's just, I don't want to talk about this anymore, which is kind of funny as a quote from a talk show, I think.
Or just, you know, merch.
Yeah. $5 item. No, I still don't understand. I've ordered things worth $5 before. That's a thing, but yeah. All right. Anyway, right, we're here. So, two guys touch tech. It's true. So, yeah, I didn't really have much of a plan. However, also we have exchanged approximately 3 words since you arrived. So we can probably talk about how our days have been and what's going on. If you're curious about the lithium cell that's sitting there,
the LF3.
Yeah.
LSL3.
Yeah. The Macintosh Classic II, which I'll put on the counter as a talking point for a moment.
That thing.
Yes. The Macintosh Classic II. So Katrina is in town. and was hanging out yesterday. And I was like, I've got these classic Macs. We need to, we're going to figure out what to do with them. Like, you're welcome to take any of them that you wish. Anything else I'm going to offer to the cave, which is the retro.
Which you have contacted.
I haven't yet. However, I asked Katrina to check in with them because Katrina's actually visiting them today as well as next week. So yeah. We didn't organise that very well, so it might fall by the wayside, but if not, I will contact them before next week. However, at any rate, the Classic II, Katrina put it up, stuck it on the bench yesterday and opened it up. And we had a quick nose inside, and that's where that cell has come from. And the two things that were the interesting discovery. So, firstly, for those of you who don't recall, we had this on the show a couple of months ago now, I think. And we turned it on, and basically it didn't have any picture lock. The picture did light up, but there was it was just scanning. There was no picture lock at all. So we were like, okay, we should probably turn that off. So, two interesting observations is, number one, that cell has not exploded and spewed its guts all over the inside of it, which is great because that would be the primary concern for a computer like this, house flies or whatever it is. Yeah. Very annoying. There's a fly buzzing around, banging off the lights. Anyway, but the other interesting thing as well is that there's some weird corrosion on the potentiometers that are almost certainly the CRT tuning potentiometers. So it looks like that's probably why it can't attain picture lock. Those potentiometers just need to be replaced, and then just twiddle and then just tongue at the right angle until it picture locks again. The only outstanding question is that, as I say, those are corroded, but we don't know why. It's just like, why is there corrosion on those? It's not like water came in the top.
40 years old?
Who knows? Maybe it sat in a garage and got a bit damp or something. So
40?
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think it was it had 92 date codes in it.
Oh, 92. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So 30.
Yes. Yeah. Well, 10. The 90s were last decade. But anyway, so yeah. So interesting thing about this thing is, yeah, it's probably fixable, and Katrina is going to take it away and probably take a swing at it because she said, yeah, I've not attempted something like this before, and there are lots of traps in this where one slip and you'll just butcher it and it's dead. However, the damage, it's got damage on it, but it's not so far gone that this is a very suitable one for someone who's trying it for the first time to take a swing at, basically. And that's not me, because I don't work on retro. However, someone like Katrina who does know retro, this is a really good candidate for her to take a swing at, so she's going to take a swing at it. So yes, and that's why there's a lithium cell there. But yeah, so this thing may well live again. The fact that it switches on is obviously a great start, but also aside from that, it's full of old tantalum caps and that kind of thing. So like a proper restoration job would be more involved. Not sure how far she's planning on going with it, but she's going to look at it though. So that's the thing. No special guest appearance. That's next week. Pre-revenue is the plan. So yeah. Do I sell laptops on eBay or online at all? No, because eBay is where you buy them. Was where I buy them from. So yeah, jump on eBay and you can find Latitudes for a very good price. So yes. Put the mic sideways to avoid beard noises. Oh, is there some beard noises coming through? Because oh yeah, that'll happen. I will adjust. We'll try moving it down. Hello, Pianov. How you doing? Buy all the Latitudes. Well, I'm buying some of them anyway. All right.
Could do with some more that are the correct size.
Isn't that a 14-inch or is that a 15?
I'm not sure. It's a Chromebook. It's a different conversation.
Okay, so let's start that conversation. Why do you have a Chromebook? Are you about to say, actually, Chromebooks are a great idea and I spent £600 on one?
No, I didn't.
I spent £500 on one, he says next.
No. I spent £2,000 on 4 of them.
Okay, yep, fair. Yep. So you're...
In March 2020.
Oh, okay. So it's not a new laptop.
No.
Very
It's a Chromebook from March 2020.
Understandable.
I bought Chromebooks because I knew everyone hated Chromebooks. And everything we did in everything we were doing in December 19 through March 20 was doable in Google Docs or Gmail. And it was a case of like, let's buy the devices for people to work from home during the times. Yeah. That's literally built for using G Suite.
Yeah. And also aside from that, I'm memeing on Chromebooks here, but for the given application, that's not a terrible idea because they're basically zero maintenance. Yeah. As long as you buy one that's not terrible and and has more than a Celeron in it, it's a zero maintenance laptop. Yeah. So yeah, fair enough then. Understandable. A Chromebook that should just be running Windows. Well, yeah. See, I think there's an interesting conversation there. But if it's for a work laptop or education, I think it's actually not a terrible idea because it's zero maintenance.
If you could find me 4 in-stock Windows laptops of the same performance class as this device in March 2020, when the world ended, when there was no supply, then sure.
Yeah, that's actually also a very good motivator there. So yeah.
But no, today I would buy these for £290 and be a bit.
I mean, what spec is that one then?
I don't know. Insert some Intel bottom of barrel device here.
No. Yeah, when it just says Intel inside and nothing else, that means it's a potato. So yeah, okay.
But it's also running Chromos, so it doesn't matter. The performance is actually fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never daily driven a Chromebook, so...
It has a 3D accelerated experience, which is better than you can say for my MacBook.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I can watch a video and scroll a web page at the same time.
Yeah, although competing against a 12-year-old laptop isn't, even if it was a flagship of its day, isn't a terribly valid argument.
But I'm saying it functions, which is more than that thing does. So it's like, it's fine.
Fair enough. Intel means it's better than a mobile SoC, isn't it? No, I don't think so. In fact, I think the bottom end the bottom end mobile Celerons are SoCs, if my memory serves me. I think
using SoC is a scale of performance or anything is irrelevant because Epic processors are SoCs.
Yeah, I was going to say
the fastest processors in existence.
Yeah, when we say SoC, we mean as in they've got external RAM. However, I'm fairly certain it's a CPU, PCH, and various other stuff on a single die. Like, obviously, pretty much any modern mobile CPU has a on-chip PCH, but I think you can start defining something as an SoC when it's got an on-die an on-die PCH. And I suppose memory comes into question then. Do you need to have on-die memory for it to be an SoC? Probably. What's up with the Mac then? Yeah, any reason why you've got it with you instead of your MacBook?
Because I left with a Mac in the office.
Very well. Yeah, okay.
And I brought this home from the office because we didn't need it in the office. And then I realised I left my Mac in the office.
It's me grasping for content.
So it's just like, oops. But yeah, no, that was literally it. That's the only reason I brought this with me instead of that. Was just because where they were and I forgot. But yes, I did want to just use this personally.
Yeah.
Again, and just be like, how is it 4 years later? Because I've not actually driven it personally in like 3 years.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting, and that's actually going to lead into another conversation that I want to have about daily driving, things you don't usually daily drive, in a moment.
And also the other thing as well, the thing I like about it is because it's Chrome OS.
Yeah.
It's Android. It's Google.
Yeah.
And like, I can turn hotspotting on and off from my laptop on my phone.
Ah, neat.
And like, I can mute my phone from my laptop and things like that. So it's just little things like that. Is like, sure, that's not everyday useful, but that's also just nice integration.
This is now making me try to remember if I still have. At some point, I had a Latitude that had some miserable Intel M5 CPU in it, or something like that, and I was going to try and stick FlexOS on that, but I can't. I don't know what happened to that laptop. It might be on a shelf somewhere. I don't remember selling it, but I've no idea where it went. So I'll have to look around for that in a moment. But yeah. Piernov said Celeron, Pentium N, J, and Silver are Atom-based with monolithic SoC die. So yeah, modern incarceration of the Atom, basically. Although what makes something Atom-based? Is that an architecture, I guess? Yeah.
Yes. Also, the other thing you can do as well is you can set it to so the laptop can share notifications from your phone.
Ah.
So you get notifications on the phone and you can reply to them on the laptop.
Neat.
So it's just little things like that.
Yeah. Yep. That's kind of I think it's kind of interesting to daily drive other systems, especially ones that possibly get sneered at. So even if you think it's going to be bad, because if it ends up being bad, then you can be like, well, now I know it's bad, instead of just being told that it's bad.
Yeah.
But speaking of things that may or may not be bad, I'm at the end of week 1 of borrowing your 7900 XTX.
Oh yes.
I'm doing my own Radeon challenge.
Radical.
Not radical, Radeon.
Oh. It has not been radical?
It's been fine so far. The only issue I've had is just transcoding. It's crap at transcoding. However, I'm keeping a log of experiences so far, the only major negative I've had is the fact that it sucks at transcoding. But as I noted in the log, that's not entirely a fair test, because I'm transcoding with Handbrake, which is basically FFmpeg, and most of the contributions into FFmpeg are from Nvidia engineers. So in a surprise to no one's really developing hardware encoding for AMD cards.
Yeah.
So it's not so much that the hardware sucks at transcoding, it's just no one is writing software for it at the moment.
Yeah.
And like a whole bunch of people, when I said this, was just like, oh, you could add in another card, or oh, you could do it on this computer. I'm like, yeah, or I could buy an Nvidia graphics card that doesn't suck at transcoding. Kind of missing the point entirely.
Yeah.
So yeah. However, that's the only point where I've had issues. So far, everything else has been pretty seamless.
Have you verified that it's actually doing hardware transcoding and so on and so forth, and it's not doing the hardware transcoding that we thought Handbrake was doing, and then suddenly we found the hardware transcoding profile that doubled the performance on the Nvidia side, just because the profiles are a bit weird.
Yeah. So, I'll double check
just
that
because
this weekend.
We found that out after months of using it, and then suddenly went, oh, wait.
Yeah.
With the ARC card.
And what's more, I don't fully so to add context for that, for ages when I was doing transcoding in Handbrake, basically I just had a profile set up where under the encoder I'd selected X264 NVENC.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? Well, it turns out there's actually a profile called 1080p NVENC, and when selecting that one, suddenly I got drastically higher performance. So obviously there's some special arguments dialed into that profile somewhere that I just don't know where those are dialed in. So yeah, non-zero. However, I don't think there are any profiles for AMD cards by default, but if I did some research, maybe I could make one or find one. So far, all I did was just select AMD, whatever the AMD encoder is called, because it seems to be called something else by every program that I've looked at. Some people are still calling it VCE, some people are calling it AMD AVE, AMD Video Engine or something. I don't know.
It should be something along the lines of AMD Video Engine.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's called. But yeah. It should be some combination of that, basically.
Yeah.
From memory.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
So I do need to confirm that in that case, just in case I can find some more performance. Although at the moment, yeah, it needs to be double the performance to match my 4080. So yeah, it's a pretty severe hit right now. But yeah, however, apart from that, everything has actually gone quite well. I haven't managed to get the RGB working at all. The official AMD RGB app for the card just does not see the card. Something you'd like to share with the class, Mr. Brody?
Apparently you can stream apps from your phone.
Uh-huh.
And it just popped up the thing that was the last thing I was watching on my phone. I was just like,
Okay.
We do not need the qualifying.
Understandable. Yes, F1 apparently. So at any rate, need to do a bit more with that. And the RGB app just straight up doesn't work. But also, I'm on an old install of Windows 10 that's been back
and has 9 different RGB things on it through the years.
Or has had 9 through the years. So, I'm not casting judgment yet because it's not a clean install. However, also though, and also like, it took like 5 restarts before the computer just settled. Like for a couple of restarts, either my NZXT Kraken water cooler was just not recognizing the graphics card and thus not showing the temperature from it, or upon booting up, it was saying your hardware configuration has changed. Please restart.
Yeah.
And it did that a couple of times. So I was like, great, I'm going to need to DDU this. But I didn't, and just after a couple more reboots, it just all seemed to clear up. Yeah. And so that fixed itself, but also that's not an experience I have had with Nvidia either.
Yeah.
So
it's also not an experience I've had with it. So, you know, it shows how variable.
That's it. And so I'm kind of, at the moment, I'm in the stage where I'm kind of thinking about how I'm grading this, and I think I'm going to start grading minor issues, so something that I had to change but really wasn't a big deal, but it was something that came up. Then major issues, which was this was a severe blow and might be a reason why I would prefer an Nvidia card. And like at the moment, if you're transcoding, that's currently a major thing. If you want high performance transcoding, you want Nvidia. Unless I actually find a profile that doubles the performance, the fact will remain is that Nvidia is just better at encoding. And then the third category I'm going to do is inconclusive, which was, this was a weird thing that happened to me, but I don't think it's fair to blame this on Radeon. This is probably a circumstance of my particular setup, or I'm doing things a weird way, like I have a weird workflow or something like that.
Yeah, and also just the fact of sort of, you know, it's somewhat intentionally a slightly difficult computer just to throw stuff into, because it's got 4 displays on it, one of which is a VR headset, stuff like that. So it's kind of intentional to kind of go, right, so does it actually have a problem? You know,
although interestingly,
are there weirdnesses is here and so on.
Interestingly, one of the problems that I expected to have but just wasn't an issue was video exporting. Because for those of you who don't know, I edit in Vegas 14 because
from 2014.
Yeah, because I'm a caveman.
And won't answer your emails.
No, because that requires me to learn DaVinci, and I don't
Get
want
paid for it.
I don't want to learn DaVinci. I can't
And
be
get
arsed.
paid for it.
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
And get paid for it.
So anyway, because Vegas 14 is archaic, it doesn't have any hardware accelerated rendering out of the box. So I use a third-party plugin called Vocoder to do this, and I just assumed that wasn't going to work. However, and that was going to be one of these inconclusive things where I'm just like, Vocoder doesn't work with a Radeon graphics card. However, this isn't really fair, because it's not fair to say Radeon is crap because it doesn't support Vegas 14. Like, this was a problem that I encountered, but it's really not fair to blame Radeon for that. That's a me problem because I'm using ancient software. However, it turns out Vocoder does support the AMD hardware accelerated video encoding. I switched it to the AMD mode, and I got about the same export times that I would normally expect. I haven't exactly timed it, but it was approximately what I would have had before. So funnily enough, one of the processes that I thought was going to be an issue just wasn't.
And if it was effectively not perceived to be different, it doesn't matter what the actual time was.
Yeah.
Because waiting for export is almost never going to be an actual hold up in your video process.
No.
It's going to be recording it and then actually editing it instead of it sitting in a folder waiting to be edited.
That much being said, I do want the export to be a reasonable time frame.
But I'm just saying,
because obviously it ties up the computer while it's doing it.
Yeah, but it not being perceptually different without timing shows that it's a wash.
Exactly. Yeah. If I timed it, one of them might have been faster than the other. However, my general rule of thumb is if your video takes longer than its runtime to export, your export process sucks. So if I edit a half an hour video, I expect that to export within 20 minutes. If it's taking longer than 20 to 30 minutes to export a half hour video, there's something terribly wrong with your encoder, because that means that you're exporting at sub 60 FPS. So there. Magix now owns Vegas. They have done for like a decade. Like, people still cite Vegas as Sony Vegas. It hasn't been Sony for since 2010, 2012, something like that. So yeah, but nothing to do with it for a very, very long time. So yes. Dana Repoulet, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. Thank you for the $10. Graham, thank you so much for your continued coverage and attention to the PSID circuit and one-wire communication. It's a topic that very few English-speaking YouTubers understand or cover. Thank you very much. There was a lot of bits of that video that I realized kind of in editing that I forgot to cover, like the actual one-wire part. Although that section that bit's not hugely rocket science, because there's a signal going from the SMC through another chip to the adapter thing. That's about it. And that's kind of like a magic box. That's basically a magic box wire. Unless you plan on hooking up an oscilloscope to it and sniffing packets, it doesn't really matter what's going on that wire. It's just the SMC talks to the adapter. However, I did want to do some coverage that actually talked about how the MagSafe detection bit worked, which was, again, it detecting that the adapter detecting that it was connected and switching on. Because that was something that I have not really fully understood myself for a long time either. And also, for those of you who didn't read, there was speculation in the comments, and there were some really good comments from Pianov and a couple of other folks who did theorize on what the real fault was. Annoyingly, the laptop had already gone out the door before I saw those comments and could actually go back and have a second look at it. So time will tell on that one. If it blows another fuse, it's going to come back in the door, because as I say to all of my customers, and I'm in good standing with them, I say, if there's any problems, bring it back. We'll look at it free of charge. This is warranted. If you have problems, come and talk to me. Won't charge you again. So if it does blow another fuse, it's going to come back in, and then we'll see it again. But yeah.
Yes, JD, upgraded from a 4080.
So yes, but yes, I'm glad you enjoyed the video. I want to do more stuff like that. That was also an interesting test video because I need to start doing a new board repair basics series where I actually just explain these sections. Because when I first got into board repair, I did the original board repair basics, and that was basically me being like, I watched a bunch of Lewis Rossman videos and this is what I learned from them. Now I'm going to try and regurgitate what I learned from Lewis Rossman videos. And most of that stuff just isn't really relevant today. And so I want to do a new series that is now, when people say I want to learn board repair, I'm like, okay, this is the kind of thing you should be thinking about. And part of that is also me just reteaching myself properly, and that's basically going to involve plagiarizing most of the bad cap stickies that Pianov wrote. So yeah, that's the plan.
What?
Right. Back reading a little bit. What are you gawking at? No? All right. Firephone says, am I exporting in Full HD or 4K? I export in 1080p because I record everything in 1080p streams. Although I've got cameras that are capable of doing half decent 4K, but I'd have to do, there would be benefit to me recording in 4K because it would give me 1080p punch in post.
Is it still 60 FPS 4K though?
No, it would be 30 FPS.
Which is...
But tolerable. Like the microscope is 30 FPS anyway, so most of the videos jump between 30 and 60. But I like 60 FPS and I like having it when I can. But also though, if I started recording in 4K, I'd have to radically alter the recording setup, and that's not beyond the realms of possibility, but it's just not something I particularly need right now. So yeah. I'm not super fussed about going up to 4K, basically. I don't think there's any real benefit to it. I don't think it's going to improve the videos meaningfully. Most of the improvements at the moment are, more recently I've been going to greater efforts to bring the bench cam in closer, so I'm relying on the digital zoom less. Because I've got fairly good digital zoom, I have been leaning on that a bit more than I have, which chips away at some of the quality I gained by going to the Insta360s in the first place. So, yeah. You want about buying latitudes off eBay? What models do you target? My preferred model is the 7400 at the moment. So yeah, that one's yeah, that's my current weapon of choice. So yes, and in terms of GPU comparisons, yeah, I have a 4080 and the one that I've swapped into as a 7900 XTX, and blow for blow, they're very comparable in performance theoretically, aren't they?
It is.
I would assume that they trade.
Similar.
Yeah,
because obviously it's a difference on if you're doing heavy ray trace stuff, you know, like the path trace mode in Cyberpunk or something like that. One's playable, one isn't.
Yeah. The Nvidia is going to have better ray tracing.
Yeah.
The AMD's got more VRAM. Although interestingly, I was on VR chat last night at a large meetup, and I didn't see any perceivable performance increase from having the extra VRAM. But that just probably means I'm bottlenecked somewhere else. And at some point, I need to sit down and figure out what's actually holding up my VR performance. My VR chat performance, so I can actually try and specialize into that. But it's certainly, throwing more VRAM at it didn't actually seem to make a difference.
Which is somewhat unexpected.
Yes. This was at a very much a casual glance of like midway through the evening. I was just like, oh, what's my FPS? Yeah, well, I'm down to the high 40s, which is pretty good going for a large VR chat room. However, still, if I'd been managing to hold 50s, I would have been impressed, and I would have been like, wow, I'm holding 50s with 30 people in the instance, you know, or 35 people in the instance. Yeah. However, no, it dropped down to the high 40s, which is about which is what I'm usually targeting anyway. So, yeah. All right, scanning down, rolling back a bit. Can you do 1440p at 60 FPS? Might be able to, but the problem is, again, because I'm recording 1080p streams, I'd still have to completely alter my recording pipeline to go higher than that. Because at the moment, I record 4 1080p streams in a 4K file, and then so I'm recording a single file in OBS at 4K with a quad view in it. Then I transcode back into 4 1080p files and edit those, which is complicated, but also many people have suggested alternatives, and certainly last week when I started this thread, people started saying alternatives, and every single suggestion that people came up with, I said, that doesn't address the core problem, or that doesn't solve the core problem. So,
yeah, the one thing that might be worth looking at, that I don't know if it does it the way I think it does, but I think you can record each device to a separate file. So you could end up with a 1080p file out of OBS for each camera.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Separate files, and they're not linked, so obviously that means you save a step.
I need to check that, because someone linked a plugin that claimed to do that. However, the plugin had terrible reviews, and that was for people who were assuming to be running one of them. But I'm not sure if OBS can do that natively. If OBS could do that natively, then that would be excellent.
Just because of the way that something was laid out in the settings, I was just kind of like, oh, it looks like it might be able to do exporting 2 files like that. And
my only concern there is that if we do that, OBS is going to be basically running 4 encoders simultaneously, and that's probably going to require upgrades to the system, because the YouTube rig is struggling as it is.
Oh yeah, because also you can only do 2 simultaneous encodes on the GPU, can't you?
I think so. Yeah. So it's like that would be a really interesting setup that would potentially solve the problems, because. However, it would also require a monster YouTube rig, and while that would be very fun to try and build, that's money that I don't really want to invest and don't need to invest at the moment. Although, as I say, the YouTube rig, it is struggling. It's managing, but it's at its limit.
I guess the other thing you could do is set it so. Is effectively work out some combination of the things, so you were just exporting 2 files with 2 cameras, so you reduce the amount of transcoding necessary effectively.
Maybe, yeah.
Or something like that, you know. It might be a case of there might be a way of just shuffling stuff, so you reduce a step of transcoding necessary because you're doing it in the recording stage.
The only thing that would be useful is eliminating the combination view entirely, because the reason why that causes such a big hold up at the transcoding stage is when I have that 4K tile file and I transcode it back into 4 separate 1080p streams, what Handbrake is having to do is it's having to do a crop and encode. So because it's having to do a crop operation, and then I cycle through the file 4 times for each quadrant, because it's cropping, most of the time, up until recently, it's cropping on the CPU, which means you're immediately CPU bottlenecked, no matter how fast NVENC is. However, a recent update to Handbrake meant that it was starting to do transforms like crop in GPU, which basically doubled my transcode speed. And that's one of the reasons why the AMD card is held up, is it's demonstrably not doing transforms on GPU because I'm CPU bottlenecked. Also, Piano said, if you ever need someone to review your videos, let me know. Thank you very much, man. I will let you know on that, because as I say, your resources are held in extremely high regard, and like just starting with basic videos like covering narrow voltage, how main power rails work between hybrid systems and narrow voltage systems and things like that. These are basics that aren't very well explained, and even I have never properly covered in any video. So
So I know you were going to go through, there was a list, I think it was on Badcamps, of kind of like, the 10 things we wish people knew before they tried repairing stuff.
Exactly that. That's why, as I say, I'm basically, I jokingly say I'm going to plagiarize them, but basically what I want to do is just adapt those into video format.
Yeah.
Because some people like reading resources, some people like it better when someone tells them through a camera. So we can have both. That's the plan there. Am I running 5800X or X3D? X, so non 3D.
I'd be interested to see what whether there was any transform performance difference because of a cache. That'd just be interesting to see.
If you wanted to do testing on that sometime, that'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Just to see.
Yeah, I would love to get a 5800X 3D just because obviously where I'm on AM4. As far as the average person goes, especially someone who is primarily gaming like me, the 5800X 3D is basically the fastest AM4 CPU for a gaming and all-rounder computer. So I would love to get one of those just so I can be like, right, I have maxed this platform. It won't go faster than this.
Yeah.
However, because I've got a 5800X already, I'm basically going to be forking out a decent amount of money for a small bump in performance because the 5800X isn't exactly a slouch. So, yeah. Kara's got a 5950X I'd be selling. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, going to a 5950X isn't a terrible idea just because I am so CPU bottlenecked in all of my video workflows. So, actually, that wouldn't be a terrible idea to pick up a 5950X. Okay. Right, scrolling through the chat.
That's not bad.
Have you looked at alternatives to OBS? Not in detail, but that's because I've got zero reason to believe they're actually better. And most of them are all paid-for solutions. And yeah, like I think the only one that has any kind of credibility is XSplit, and XSplit users are their own breed. There are dozens of them, but yeah. You're looking at CPU prices or something?
And then I realised it wasn't quite as good as I thought it was. 5800X 3D, $299, which isn't awful, but also the fact of just, that's still $300.
Yeah. I've got a friend who's about to upgrade from their computer to a 5800X 3D, but they've got a 3600 at the moment. And so for them, I was just like, oh yeah, 5800X 3D is going to change your world and save you from having to do a complete platform upgrade.
I don't know why you'd buy a 5800X 3D when you can buy a 5700X 3D for $190. I will keep the $109.
I keep forgetting that the 5700X 3D exists.
I will keep the $109 for 100 megahertz.
I need to DM my friend and be like, because he hasn't bought it yet because they went out of stock where he's at.
Is he in America?
He's Netherlands.
Oh, okay.
But I'll have to actually just send him a message and say, oh, by the way, check the 5700X 3D. Because if that's in stock, it's going to be an awful lot cheaper and basically the same speed.
Netherlands.
Nederland.
Are they someone who'll buy online?
Yes, yeah, they'll be buying on the internet, yeah.
They're not someone who's like, web buying.
No.
Yeah, fine.
It's just Europe is weird for buying stuff, especially places like the Netherlands.
The X3D is online pricing at least €120 cheaper. The 57. Oh my god, why am I struggling? 5700X3D, 5700X3D is like €122 cheaper than the 5800X3D.
Yeah, the 5800X3D has an inflated price on it.
It has Halo pricing.
Yeah, and like in a way that's kind of with good reason because it's the fastest gaming CPU in the socket, and that means it's gonna be worth more. You know, because my friend had observed that it was more expensive than a 5900X. And a 5950X, which is the top tier chip, was only like another €50 more for him. However, I was just like, all the same, buy the X3D because you're a gamer and this is going to be faster in games. That's the bit that you actually care about.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the pricing on it is weird. I don't think it's unreasonable, because when you say this is the fastest in its class, that does command a slightly higher price tag. However, that if the 5700 X3D is like 120 euros cheaper, then that's outstanding bang for buck. So yeah. And again, you know, bang for buck is also what you kind of care about if you're buying AM4, because while, you know, like, we're doing this because we're trying to avoid the cost of a full platform upgrade. So bang for buck is kind of what we're interested in here. If you want outright performance, then you should do a platform upgrade, especially with Ryzen 9000 around the corner.
Yeah. The other thing to double check as well is how much it is buying it from Amazon.
I was going to, well,
Germany.
Mike's just said 5700 X3D is about 125 quid on AliExpress at the moment, and gosh, that's an enticing offer.
Amazon. Refuser.
Oh, 5800 X3D is 150 quid on AliExpress at the moment, apparently. And no, to be honest, I'd pay another 25 quid just to get the top dog. Because also, like, you'd have to have a look at, you need to have a look at something, you need to look at something like a Gamers Nexus review for both chips to see what the clock curve looks like. Because even though the 5800 X3D is only 100 megahertz higher boost, what's its average clock speed? Because if it's... I
don't know, but its gaming performance is less than 5%.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say,
so for price
that might be the answer then, because I was about to say, even just because something is only 100 megahertz slower, if it has a significantly lower power target, for example, the 5800 X3D, even though it's only 100 megahertz higher target, it's consistently getting closer or hitting that target. Whereas if the lower tier one has a lower power budget, then even though it's only 100 megahertz slower on paper, it's consistently a lot slower than that in the real world. But if the performance difference is like 5%, then no, that's just not what's going on then. So yeah.
Tell your friend to look at Amazon Germany and see what the price is there, because the 5700 X3D is 208 euros on Amazon DE, but is 222 euros on Mekigo, which is a Dutch retailer. So it's like 20 euros cheaper from Amazon Germany, and given I'll do that. I'll check in with him and make sure that he's getting himself a good deal. Wait 3 months and then get Ryzen 9000. Well, that's going to be a full platform upgrade, and suddenly a couple of hundred euros for an upgrade CPU turns into what will be. I mean, the new gaming CPUs for Ryzen 9000. Firstly, there's no talk of an X3D model yet. I don't think, is there? And B, no, we haven't had press days or anything.
Yeah, and realistically, like the 9600X or like the 9700X, it's gonna be 300 or 400 quid, because it's the new generation. So that's going to be suddenly 200 euros becomes 400 euros, and you're going to need new RAM, so that's going to be another 150, 200 euros.
100, yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to need new motherboard, that's going to be another 200 euros. So suddenly a couple of €100 for a new chip that drops into your existing platform becomes a 600 or 700 euro platform upgrade. So yeah, that's the thing. This is why for a lot of people who are still on AM4, despite the fact that it's obsolete, that's the thing, because the 5700 X3D and the 5800 X3D are so competitive in the gaming space, it still makes a lot of sense to upgrade to them, basically. So yeah. Jen Charles is saying 300 megahertz difference in clocks, single and multi-thread tests. Yeah.
Oh, fair. Show me the price chart.
Currys have got a 5700 X3D for £164. That's not bad to get one in the country. So yeah. No reason to upgrade from a 5600X to anything else on AM4. No, I agree with that, to be honest.
Depends if you're gaming and whether you're CPU limited and whether you care.
Yeah, got a
Because-
7800 XT, so
Yeah.
yeah. No, for that, you would get a performance boost by going to a higher CPU, but no, I would hold out I would hold out until well, yeah, I would just hold out. I just don't see the need to upgrade from that for now.
Oh boy.
Like, for me, because obviously, like, I'm running a 5800X. I'm on AM4 still, and I'm kind of thinking, when am I going to do a platform upgrade of my own? And I think I'm probably waiting for a 9800X 3D. I think that's.
I would imagine you will be waiting until somewhere around February 26. That's where I'm presuming
Really?
you'll be waiting for, just because that's when we'll get the first lowest prices on the 9000 X3Ds. Will be January.
The 7000X 3Ds weren't that far behind the release.
No, not the release. The lowest price that they'll go
Oh,
to
I see,
after
yeah.
release is about 9 months, and then from 9 months until end of life, they only drop by about £10.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super fussed about waiting for the lowest prices, because then you're just going to be that's a game you don't win.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Based off of the timescale we're looking now to that upgrade
Yeah.
on the prices.
Like, to be
it'll
honest,
be about then.
yeah, I mean, I think, if we, because like at the moment I don't have a pressing need to upgrade, but if I was upgrading for the sake of it, I think within the next 12 months I'm going to have the itch to upgrade my CPU. I'm going to be like, yeah, I want to do a platform upgrade now, get onto the new stuff. And I think around the time when the 9000X 3Ds come out, that's probably going to be about a year from now, or no more than, within the next year. So when those are released, as long as the pricing isn't insane, that's probably when I'm going to buy in. Yeah, you did an upgrade from a Ryzen 5000 to an 8000 and instantly regretted it. Yeah, that's kind of why I haven't been in a hurry.
Yeah, because the 8000s are all APUs.
Yeah, when you say Ryzen 8000, do you mean a 7000 then, or did you buy an 8000 series APU?
Ah, yes. The Mpao chip. 'Cause it's really poorly translated Russian.
I see.
They've translated the Cyrillic characters into Latin characters
The backwards N is just an N.
without actually translating
I see.
it. And I'm just like, that's not how that works.
What GPU upgrade would you recommend from a 2070 on a B450 motherboard?
Depends.
Yeah.
What
so
resolution are you playing at? What refresh rate are you playing at?
Want some frames at 1440p. So
sorry, you have a 2770.
got a 2070. Yeah, and aiming for 1440p, and obviously higher frame rate is better. That kind of goes without saying at this point. So yeah. So setting the rules, I'm assuming we're talking about a brand new graphics card. So what did we decide about 6000 series graphics cards? Do they still exist? Or are we firmly in the direction of 40 series and 7000 series now?
Solidly, it depends.
Yeah.
As a starting point for a conversation, to double performance, so for a 100% performance uplift, you're looking at a 7800 XT or a 6900 XT. and that will give you a 100% performance gain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that sets, I would say, the maximum ceiling effectively.
Yeah.
Which country?
Yeah, that's a good that's a good country. That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good country. What question?
Because like if it was my money and I was buying stuff for upgrades and so on,
in the UK,
I would be looking at seeing what I can do on 6900, 6950 XTs off of like eBay.
Yeah.
That's what I would be doing.
Given that you're on a B450 platform as well, I would probably be trying to buy secondhand. But then
eBay.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what's the going rate on a 4070 Ti Super these days? Because everyone hates on that card, but I don't think it's insanity.
Yeah, but I kind of think it is when I can buy like 6900, 6950s for like 400.
I suppose, but I feel like the 6000 series is starting to get to the stage where it's just like, when are we going to admit that these are old graphics cards? And I'm not saying that the performance isn't there, but there comes a point when you don't really want to buy second-hand stuff that is 5+ years old. So, like, how old is the 6000 series now? And I say you don't want to buy stuff that is 5 years plus old, not just because of partly because you just want to have modern things, and also partly just because it's like buying just from the sense of the same reason as buying a car. To a certain extent, age has a factor on reliability, and broadly speaking, newer is always better to a point. So we kind of don't want to buy into stuff that is very old. This is the problem when people. This is why I have a lot of resistance to people who say, the GTX 1080 Ti is still a great graphics card. It's like, yeah, it aged incredibly well, but also that thing's ancient, man. Are you sure you want to be buying a 10 series graphics card?
And also, just as a kind of a comparison on that, for the 1080 Ti, yes, it's aged great and has good performance on it for the age of card, but it is also the fact of just you can buy cards that are 3 times faster than it now.
Yeah,
like that. You can buy cards that are 4 times faster than it.
I'm not suggesting that we buy it here. I'm using that as a point of.
But just as kind of my counterpoint on that conversation, it's just that, that's how far we have come.
Yeah.
So it's a case of like, whilst it's completely blowing it out and it is not a fair value comparison, the 4090 is 332% faster. So that's a substantial increase.
Yeah.
Going to a 7900 GRE over a 1080 Ti is a doubling of performance. So it's just kind of
pulling back onto topic though. The 6800 and the 6800 XT were released November, so end of 2020, but 2020 all the same.
4 years.
Yeah. So, they're 4 years old, and obviously they're still fine, but again, I'm kind of conscious of the fact of where are we going to draw the line before we stop telling people to buy the 4-year-old series and start buying something that was released. But then there is only one series that's newer than that.
When you're not buying it as the second person. When you're buying it as the third or the fourth or the fifth person who's held it, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But at the moment, buying it second hand, you're likely to only be the second person who's had that card.
Fair enough.
And I think that's quite reasonable at the moment.
I'm kind of devil's advocating here, and I agree. I think that's a
and
that's
also because it's only one
generation.
generation.
Yeah.
I think as soon as we get 5000 series from Nvidia and 8000 series from AMD, that's it. Basically, it's budget card only.
Yeah.
Is the recommendation for 6000 series and 3000 series to me, just because they're then 2 generations old, and that's kind of my thing for me. Is I don't want to be spending £400 on a 2-generation old product.
Yeah.
But spending £400 on the fastest of the previous generation card doesn't seem unreasonable to me. So it's kind of, it's partially just a in your head thing, but yeah. But also the comparison, a 4070 Ti Super is £756.
Yeah.
So nearly double the price.
And yeah, well, 7800 XT is 470 quid brand new.
What is the step between the
Like
70 Ti Super?
Like that actually seems kind of insane to me. Is the 7800 XT any good? Because like 470 quid brand new, that sounds pretty good to me.
The 4070 Ti Super is 26% faster than the
7800 XT.
Than the 7800 XT.
26%. That's quite a hike. Yeah.
Yeah. But what was the price difference?
Yeah, I'm just looking up what the 4070 Ti Super. I hate it. I hate it so much. Whatever. However, let's see, 790, 820, call it £800, approximately £800. So it's £800 versus £470. So there's a massive, there's a cataclysmic gap between them. So what's the
So you said 470 to 800.
Yeah. So, if we're stretching it slightly, we're almost double the price.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, and yeah, that's like in Nvidia pricing, I think it sits reasonably well in the Nvidia product stack at the moment. However, with a 7800 XT costing £470, now, yeah, sure, it's 25% slower, or the other one is 25% faster, but when you look at that price gap, you're just like, I don't know, 470 quid for the 7800 XT, that sounds like outstanding value for money to me.
In that, in that stack, in that comparison.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
6900 XT at £500. How does that factor in? Because I think that would be the next step up, really.
How much did you say?
500 quid for a 6900 XT. That's for a nice one as well. That's a Gigabyte Aorus Master.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It depends, because you can get 7900 GREs for 520 to 530.
Yeah.
Which is just another small step up.
Yeah. Problem is with price creeping. There's always something that's a small step up kind of thing.
Oh yeah, but comparing to the £800 graphics card you just mentioned.
Yes. Yeah.
It's £60. I'm talking £60 for 15% performance. So almost 1-to-1 on pound per frame, but slightly worse. Actually, it's slightly worse than that. It's slightly more than £1 per frame, effectively.
Yeah.
Per percentage of anyway. Let's not work out that horrific bastard unit of comparison by percentage comparison.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike says he's got a 4070 Ti Super and it demolishes a 7800 XT. Citations needed. But then on the other hand, 25%, that's a sizable gap. That's something you're going to feel.
Oh yeah, it's an entire performance tier.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
an entire performance tier and a half.
Yeah.
So,
but also again, the price tags are like, I would call the price tags 2 performance tiers apart, which is why I'm saying the 7800 XT seems to be good value.
It's £400 difference in price.
Yeah, that's a hell of a step in price. And like, if you told me that if you look at it, if we start out at the 7800 XT and you said you spent nearly double the money to get another 25%, I'd be like, that doesn't sound like good value to me.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it depends on what way you're looking at it, because you could say, okay, well, what if you want more performance than a 7800 XT, what do you buy then that's better value for that?
Possibly a 7900 XT.
Yeah,
Depends
I
on
think
how
that would be the
pricing
answer
is on
there.
the 7900 XT.
I think this is why I'm super interested in my Radeon challenge here, because I'm kind of looking at this being like, why are we buying Nvidia cards again?
Oh no, the 7900 XT is bad value. It's 680 minimum.
No.
That's kind of bad compared to the GRE.
Yeah.
I'd get a GRE over an XT because the performance difference between the two is not that great.
Yeah.
What is it?
Does AMD still have a lot of driver issues? No. But also, this is why I'm doing a Radeon challenge, because
almost 20%.
and everyone I know who runs AMD is just like, there's no problems with it, man. It's fine. And I fully believe that. However, I'm also basically, the way I'm going to open the video, because I'm going to make a video about this, but it'll probably be it's several weeks away. But it's going to be a matter of, I keep saying to people that AMD graphics cards are great value for money. They're completely fine, and you should totally buy one. But every time I'm buying a graphics card, I buy an Nvidia just in case.
I mean, is that actually the reason, or is the other, or is it other factors that possibly shouldn't be considered in the context of the video?
That helps, but certainly, well, my previous purchases, my 3070 and my 3080 Ti, I bought those straight up instead of buying AMD. I could have bought AMD, but I wanted the RTX. Yeah. Now, sure, I got great deals on those as well, but it's because we were seeking them out.
I don't know if. Oh, did you go from a 37? Did I get you a 3070?
Yeah, this was the other thing as well. Is when I was buying the 3070 and the 3080 Ti,
we got MSRP models when everything else was 4 times the price.
Yeah, we were sniping them. So it's really it's not quite that simple. But
that's what I'm kind of saying. The personal comparison is skewed because of that.
That being said, though, I would still prefer to have an Nvidia, and I still think I still think the Nvidia has a higher pimp value. I think, when someone, I would rather have an RTX in my computer than a Radeon. There's, I've got this bias toward Nvidia, even though I tell other people that AMD is a smarter choice. So that's kind of exactly why I'm doing this Radeon challenge, because I want to daily drive a Radeon card and actually just do everything in it and see how it plays out. And thus far, the installation has been fine. The installation has been fine. My gaming experience has been fine. I stream on Twitch, and I went into OBS and I said, I went into my OBS output settings and I changed the encoder from NVENC to AMD. Bashed in 6 megabit output, and that just worked first time, no issues at all. I've had no issues with games, although I haven't streamed a AAA game exactly, but I've no reason to believe that that's going to go any differently. If anything, it'll go better because I've got more VRAM, which is usually when NVENC starts struggling, because when you're streaming, if you start running out of VRAM, then your stream will crash. Ask me how I know after playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor,
something dark side.
something. Oh my God, where's all my VRAM gone? Anyway, so far my experience has been great, and I'm like, why are we buying Nvidia unless you've got money to burn and you're buying top tier? Unless you want the 4080 Super or the 4090, AMD just seems to be a smarter choice. That's basically that's what the writing on the wall says to me. But this is why I want to put it to the test.
Okay.
Because, unless you're, Nvidia holds the performance crown. There's no denying that. But if you're buying mid-range, AMD just seems to be better.
The other thing I realise is another reason why you'd spend some extra money in getting the 7900 XT over the GRE is the GRE is a 16 gig card and the XT is a 20 gig card.
Okay, yeah.
So if you are playing at 4K, if you are doing more VRAM intensive stuff, that
might be a consideration.
that 20% price improvement for a 22% performance improvement swings a bit because of the extra VRAM as well, and I hadn't considered that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's a model name for a graphics card. I was very confused. I saw the title of a review of an XFX Radeon Magnetic Air. I was like, magnetic air?
I'm assuming they mean it's got maglev bearings in the fans.
Yeah, that's what I presume as well. But I was just like, what? Oh, it's a graphics card. Okay.
Yeah. If you're using Adobe Premiere, you really have to go with Nvidia. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't know. As someone, as not a Premiere user, yeah, I don't know. Certainly, annoyingly, I have zero experience with actual modern video editing because I use an archaic system. Because my workflow just doesn't seem to gel with modern systems. At some point, I need to have a go with both Premiere and Resolve. But like when I've tried to go to newer versions of Vegas, I've just seen worse performance, which is why I still use 14. Because whenever I've tried Vegas 18, I've tried Vegas 19, I think, if 19 is a thing, and both times I had worse performance. So I was like, guess I'll use the old version.
That's not how you spell Puget, but that will do.
So yeah.
What was I was constructing a thought whilst you were saying that, and I completely lost
Would
what
question
it was.
more about who will support Adobe right now, because their last thing was boneheaded. Yeah, this is a bit tricky because it depends. Like, yeah, when
Wow.
you know, if you're using Premiere, you could use something that's not Premiere. But then also, I mean, how does Resolve compare with AMD versus Nvidia? That would be the question there. But yeah. However, yeah, I don't know. I'm not an Adobe user.
Ah, interesting. Based off of Puget Bench for Premiere Pro 0.95.6, the 4080 vanilla is 1440 points, and the 7900 XTX is 1400 points. So it's 10%.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, and this was in Puget Bench, so
This is Puget Bench of Premiere Pro.
of Premiere, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, so in that case, yeah, certainly for those two graphics cards, then the 4080 and the 7900 XTX, like 10%, yeah, it's a bit better in Nvidia, but that's not world changing unless you're really at the ragged edge and you need every single bit of performance you can get. You know, like if it was a dedicated video editing rig, then obviously you would buy the Nvidia card for it. But
I don't know if you'd say obviously, because don't forget the price difference.
The price difference, yeah.
There's a £400 price difference.
Yeah, and then on top,
if you need two of them, because
that
you've got
becomes
two
an
editors, that's
yeah.
£800 in difference for only 10% per machine.
Yeah,
kind of thing. So,
and if you're building an all-rounder machine that's also doing gaming and stuff like that, then, you know, at that point, a 10% difference isn't necessarily going to swing. You're going to be like, well, I'm more than happy with the AMD for many other reasons.
But also at the same time, if it's a full-time video editing rig that will be kept busy full-time,
yeah,
who cares about £400?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a case of, no, I see the arguments both ways on that, and it's kind of, yeah. I think what you would do in reality is just buy the 4080.
Yeah. Jim says, I use DaVinci because I'm cheap. DaVinci Resolve is a professional editing system.
DaVinci Resolve is what
to sniff at.
Awful lot of full production films are edited.
Yeah, remember that's Black Magic. This is Black Magic is Hollywood equipment. So yeah. Resolve isn't a weird free open source type thing. There is a free tier of it, but it is professional video editing software. So that's one of the reasons why I have very little incentive to learn Premiere because heck Adobe, quite frankly. I'm not paying Adobe prices. Why would I
I'm
be
not paying Adobe. End sentence.
Why would I be paying Adobe and learn Premiere when I could just learn Resolve for free and learn a professional video editing software for free? That's the thing. And Steve said, you know, it's not much of a choice if you have clients. Yeah, if you're trapped in a specific ecosystem because your clients are using that, that's fair. But if you're not trapped by other clients and you can use whatever you want to, I don't understand why you would pick Premiere over Resolve, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah. Puget Benchmark covers way too many parts of editing. For me, playback and render are the things that hold up my process, and they're much more powerful in Nvidia. I find that believable, yeah. Obviously, your mileage may vary in this case, because it's going to be specific things. This is in the same way that for me, I have very specific CPU bottlenecks because of specific things I do as well. So yeah, I find that fully believable. However, at this point now, yeah, it's going to depend on what you're doing. Why is DaVinci free? Advertising, I think, because
Also,
if they get people learning Resolve, then people, if Blackmagic get people into DaVinci Resolve, then they will bring that into professional environments and buy the Blackmagic equipment that is designed to work with that, and that's what they're actually interested in. That's my guess there.
Correction built in.
So yeah.
Oh, I see. Also, because as far as I'm aware, Blackmagic are a camera company.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
They're a camera company that has made top-tier editing software, not a video editing company that has made top-tier cameras.
Yeah, I would say
so they care about selling the cameras, and if they give you some editing software on the side so you buy another camera,
yeah,
they're happy to sell you the camera.
I would call them a cinematography equipment company.
Yeah.
Primarily cameras,
yeah,
but they do have, you know, you can have an editing suite that has a Blackmagic logo on every bit of hardware.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
but
yeah.
Sorry, I meant sort of where their focus kind of was on the hardware that they sell.
Yeah.
If we give you software for free, so you buy more hardware, well, here's some software.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a reason why they'd have a free tier, because
and
anyone can go buy their camera.
Yeah.
And then if you go to them, oh, by the way, you bought our camera, why don't you use our editing software?
Yeah.
Oh, it's £1,000. No, screw that. I'm going to go buy someone else's gear.
Yeah, they've probably also observed that if they tried to charge money for Resolve, they wouldn't actually be able to get any meaningful amount of money for it. Adobe make big money because they're selling a complete creative suite.
They also get money because people are tied in by clients. And everyone hates paying the money.
Yeah. And so,
but they're in an abusive relationship.
Blackmagic have obviously looked at that and said, well, we can't do a subscription model because that's not going to curry favor when we're trying to poach people from Adobe.
Yeah.
And likewise, if we charged a one-off fee, what could we charge? You know, X hundred. You know, X thousand. That doesn't make us any amount of money that we actually care about versus what we're making by selling the equipment. So we may as well sell it for free and have the great PR of giving free software, basically.
Yeah.
So they've obviously run the numbers and figured out that works out better for them.
I don't know if
yeah, I was just going to cut in and say, Turnip Gaming, thank you for the £10. I'm guessing for graphics cards, the higher the VRAM, the better. It's equivalent for multitasking while gaming and streaming at the same time. Yes. And good afternoon. Yes. More or less, yes. It's a lot like having RAM in your computer. More RAM is better up to a point. If you are limited by RAM, then adding more will help. If you are limited by VRAM, adding more VRAM will help. So, yeah.
Yes. The only point I was going to make with that that's slightly different is that it's better to have more VRAM than it is to have more RAM on that kind of sliding thing, just because you can push texture quality very high with zero computational cost, whereas general system RAM, you can't push the computational requirement for that RAM higher without needing more computational power. So a low-end graphics card with more VRAM is still more balanced than a low-end processor with a bajillion terabytes of RAM, because you can use textures, because textures use VRAM primarily in gaming.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a case of like a 7600 XT with 16 gigs of VRAM on it still makes sense, even if you say, oh, the core's underpowered for that much VRAM because of high resolution textures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, though, yes, broadly speaking, bigger number better.
Yeah.
So
also, as JD says, which is what I was just reading on their website, DaVinci Resolve Studio, I don't know what the exact commercial terms for usage on there, but it's a £300 license that seems to last forever.
That's extremely reasonable. Like for
We're
what
a camera company.
Yeah. For what that actually entails, it's almost weird that they bothered charging that in the first place, because that's such a low cost for a premium lifetime license.
It's also probably tied to a specific version number, so it's probably only a lifetime license for Blackmagic 19.
That must
and
be
they'll
the
release
answer
a 20
there.
in a couple of years' time.
Yeah. It's also worth noting
still,
that I believe that you need to have a premium license in order to actually use any of the Blackmagic hardware with Resolve.
In the sense of mixing desks and controllers and so on, yes, you can use their cameras with the free
because obviously
version.
the camera spits out a video file.
Yeah.
But if you're actually using the mixing
they're
decks
not
and
that
stuff
kind
like
of pricks with DRM.
But that's the thing.
Oh, no.
See, for a moment, I was like, this goes without saying. I'm like, well, actually, no, it doesn't go without saying.
I'm terribly sorry. I'm terribly sorry. You can't edit that footage from your iPhone because you haven't bought the premium version of iMovie. And you can't edit it in anything else because it's DRM to iMovie.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what?
Which bit have you read?
Premium gives you 32K 120 FPS with HDR versus a limit of 4K 60 on the free one. But also gives you built-in GPU acceleration.
Oh, the free one doesn't have GPU acceleration. That's interesting. Yeah. So at that point I would. It depends on how it depends on where it binds up then, because the issue that I have in my editing workflow is that I am editing compressed footage because I record in OBS, and I want to record and I'm recording in OBS and I want my raw footage to not be 100 gigabytes because I am editing. I'm editing compressed footage, and editing compressed footage is really inefficient, like hysterically inefficient, which is why I'm so CPU bound in editing. So the question is that whether having like the CPU acceleration actually helps with that at all, because this is one of the reasons why going to newer versions of Vegas didn't fix my problems, because the core problem with my workflow is that I'm editing compressed footage. And the only way of not doing that would be to record uncompressed, which means the YouTube rig is going to spit out hundreds of megabyte files. And like at some point, I could probably have a look into doing that, but it's kind of gonna suck compared to just having to go home with a 15 gigabyte 4K file that's got all of the streams in it. You know.
Yeah. Now, I wonder if there will be something like, some sort of explicit support for GPU acceleration and so on, and like they'll actually support you in making it work and things like that. And on the free version, if it works with your setup, congrats.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, tough.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It is not supported, but it's there.
Yeah. It would be, and like actually having useful support would be good as well, because, for example, Vegas is supposed to have GPU acceleration support. It's turned on in mine. Never seen it actually do anything. Even when I use like the specific hardware accelerated video effects, it doesn't seem to do anything. And also, like, even if that worked, because you're CPU bound somewhere else in the timeline, it doesn't actually matter. Like, for example, with my face cam, when I put my face cam in the top left corner of the video, that is a crop and scale transform. So even if I put a filter on that was GPU accelerated, it still has to do a crop transform, a crop and scale transform on that, which isn't GPU accelerated apparently, which means I'm not actually going to benefit from it anyway because I'm immediately going to get bound up when it has to do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe I would get that effect for free without adding in an additional process, but again, that's just not what actually holds you up in the real world. No. So if someone said we've got GPU acceleration and we support it, to me that infers that they've got it and it actually works in the real world. And again, that would be very interesting to me if you told me that both Premiere and Resolve with modern GPU acceleration have no issues doing editing on compressed footage. Then it's like, oh, okay, that actually solves one of my primary workflow problems.
I've no idea if any of them will say they support compressed footage.
Yeah. Consider dropping 60 FPS for 30 FPS? No, because I like 60 FPS. It looks really nice. In short. Yeah.
I actually just don't watch YouTube channels that don't upload in 60 these days.
Yeah, 60 just looks so much nicer than 30. And like this
well,
is
don't upload it above 30. I think is a better way of phrasing that.
This is one of the things that frustrates me with a lot of you know, a lot of the mainstream tech channels like Linus Tech Tips and Jay's 2 Cents and so on. Well, not Gamers Nexus, but certainly like Jay's 2 Cents and LTT, they still upload at 30 FPS. So whenever they're showing footage on the screen, they're like sort of, oh yeah, look at this and stuff. You're seeing everything at 30 and you're like, I have to take your word for it because I can't see any, all I see is a smeary mess at 30 FPS, you know. And when I'm moving something around under camera, the difference between 60 and 30 when I'm moving something around on the bench is night and day. And it makes me immeasurably sad that my microscope is 30 FPS. And it's one of the reasons why I'm really excited for the Tomlov microscope that is on the way, because that one is supposed to be 60.
Have you've replied to your emails?
I did the last time they emailed me. I said, yes, please send me one. Whether they'll actually do it or not is another question, but I have requested one, and I've given them my address, and they're like, cool, we're going to send you our 4K 60 FPS microscope.
Oh.
I'm hoping that it will give me a 1080p 60 FPS output over HDMI, and in which case the microscope quality will look orders of magnitude better, because right now just the rolling shutter at 30 FPS under the microscope is horrendous. So yeah, I cannot wait to get the microscope up to 60 FPS, basically.
I guess the only way you'd be able to do that otherwise is by getting a one with a camera port. And putting a real camera on it. Yes,
if I actually went down the trinocular route and stuff like that, which really I kind of should, but I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, you can get custom special, you know, compass switches now.
This is true. Yeah.
From that one man.
I'd have to. The thing is, if I went to a trinocular microscope, I'd have to radically alter my bench setup. And again, this is something that I will probably do in time. But I'm not ready to do that quite yet. And while someone is sending me free digital scopes, I'm just like, I'll take a free digital scope instead of having to spend at least 600 quid on a trinocular setup. And I say 600 quid on a trinocular setup because people will be like, oh, you can get good ones for 300. I'm like, yeah, now then you've got to buy the stand. Then you've got to buy a Barlow lens. Then you've got to buy the camera for it. Then you've probably got to buy a mount for the camera as well. By the time you've built the rig, it's 600 minimum kind of thing. So yeah, and you'll get a great picture out of that, don't get me wrong. That's going to be an amazing setup. But yeah, digital scopes are still drastically cheaper for something that is good enough. Not saying it's better, I'm just saying it's an awful lot cheaper. And I like cheap, so... Is this discussion the result of the glitch in the video this week? What glitch? Successful channels upload from videos recorded on the phone. It's content's first. Phones do really good content though, that's the thing. Phones are actually really good cameras, so that's perfectly fine as well. So yes. Is football coming home? I'll believe it when it actually does. we had a lucky win, and now they won't shut up. England are doing fine at the moment. However, my friend who is into football is just like, they're performing above expectations.
Really?
That was his assessment.
Everyone else I've heard has been saying, I cannot believe how poorly they've been playing.
Well, that's kind of his point, you know. It's just like the fact that they've actually pulled it was 2 wins, isn't it?
Oh, I see. The fact that they have not instantly been knocked out is shocking to them.
That's the thing. It's just like they have not exploded, and that's kind of like sort of, oh, okay, well, good job, but like so you know, with the way they're playing, they should have exploded, but somehow they haven't. So they are performing above expectations. Yeah, that's the implication here. Certainly, his assertion from watching them was not, wow, they're doing a really strong game here. They're, you know, it looks like they've pulled together a really good team this year, etc. No, it's surprising they haven't bombed out.
Yeah.
So yes. Yeah, win and a draw. But yes. Phone cameras are actually surprisingly good. Yes, exactly that. The only problem with using phones as cameras is when you're hand-holding them, they're great. But the reason why I don't like using phones for my cameras is basically like you'd have to buy good phones. And, you know, if you're, because I want dedicated cameras, I don't want to have to put my personal phone into a clamp while I'm recording a video and then just not have access to my phone while it's there. It's the same excuse as using your phone as a webcam. Yeah, phones work great for webcams, but while you're using your phone as a webcam, you no longer have access to your phone. And so you might say, well, get a dedicated phone for the job then. It's like, okay, well, a half-decent phone is going to cost you £300 or £400. You can get a pretty damn good webcam for that kind of money. So
yeah,
that's the thing. It's just like they do work great, but they don't actually make sense as main cameras unless you're handy camming. So if you're handy camming, definitely. But that doesn't mean that they make good production cameras. Yes.
Also, the other thing as well is just the fact of I'm still waiting for dual 4K 60 PCIe capture cards.
Do they still not exist then?
Not as far as I can tell.
Yeah, because I thought Elgato have got a quad 4K card, haven't they? But
which is 1080p 60.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I want one that is 4K and 60 FPS.
Presumably, because like you could build that, you know, you just put multiple controllers on it, but presumably they've looked at it and said this is going to cost too much and no one's going to buy it because it's a niche product.
Yeah,
it's only really useful to a YouTube, like multiple input cards are really useful to someone like me, but I'm a niche user. Elgato's target market is game streamers, and they generally only need one input, the console.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe their face cam, so I suppose there'd be a market for a dual input.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of saying. But to me, it's surprising that there isn't just a dual input one.
Yeah.
Like quad input, no, I don't expect anyone to have made that.
No.
Oh, that's a Mellanox InfiniBand connector. No wonder that's not what I was expecting.
Yeah, no, you're right. A dual input 4K 60, that's not beyond the realm. That's something that a streamer would find useful because they're going to have a mirrorless camera as their face cam and they've got a console input for the game.
Yeah.
So yeah. Turner Gaming, thank you for the £10. I agree with YouTube videos being 60 FPS because after seeing it, I can't watch 30 FPS without making me feel motion sick. Certainly if you're on a big screen, yeah, and gaming definitely.
It's awful.
Yeah. I think the only time 30 FPS is kind of acceptable is like talking head content. That's the point where 60 FPS is nice, but talking head content at 30 is fine. And also like cinematic content at 30 is fine. But certainly, if you're doing something where there is a lot of motion on screen, I think 60 FPS just makes everything better. So yeah.
Even looking at like the professional side of stuff, so like black magic cards, doesn't seem to be a thing either.
I think it's just because they're
Slightly
not.
surprises me.
Yeah, it's a weird spot because broadly speaking, the professional space isn't interested in digital capture like this, because they're all recording stuff and then editing. Although an interesting thing came up, an interesting product came up that was linked by Lamenzge. Help me. We both know them from the Discord.
Okay, the person in the Discord, the diminutive.
Is that what it means?
I can't remember exactly what it means.
Anyway, they actually linked I think it was a Blackmagic product that was a quad HDMI input mixing deck, which would take 4 HDMI inputs and live mix them in hardware. And that was interesting, and the purpose of that was for the purpose of live streaming, because it meant you could do live streaming with camera switching and production in hardware on a single deck, and that was interesting from a live streaming perspective, because it effectively negated, but also it was basically doing OBS in hardware instead of in software, and I thought that was kind of interesting, because it shunted the load off of the computer. Because now, if you've got 4 HDMI streams that you're trying to run into OBS, normally you would need 4 capture cards for that. Now you can run it into a dedicated mixing deck, and you can just do it all in hardware. Your producer sits there and goes, camera 1. Other person speaking, camera 2. Camera 1 again. And or they can switch to wide shot, crowd laughs. So, effectively doing OBS in hardware, and that was an interesting product, but again, it doesn't solve my problems because I need, and also I think it was capable of recording. Yeah, it was capable of recording the 4 streams into 4 files simultaneously as well. That also made it interesting, but the problem. So it did solve my requirement to record 4 streams at the same time, but. Also, it's kind of massive overkill, and it assumes that you have HDMI sources, which I don't. So, but that was an interesting product.
Yeah, it's also the thing for me that's surprising is that multi-HDMI capture doesn't exist because of eFeds. All of the big e-game or all of the big e-tournaments have the display, the onboard effectively have the gamer screen captured for the stream to present. And the way they're doing that currently is by running OBS locally on every single device.
Which kind of seems nuts.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, though, I assume their tech guys have thought this through and decided that that's the best way to do it.
But it surprises me that that device doesn't exist when there is a market for that.
Yeah, and considering the amount of money sloshing around in that, you would imagine that they would have gone to a company and say, we need a rack that can take 16 HDMI inputs and allow us to mix that. Yeah.
But also the other thing, interesting side comment, there is an official Formula One E-League, which is all based on the F1 20 whatever year game. The machines they're supplying can't run those games at a performance that is remotely competitive.
Oh.
And also those machines are running OBS at the same time.
See, this
and they're supplying like mini PCs like this
with
like
gaming,
with like 4080s in, and they're thermal throttling within like 2 or 3 minutes of the session starting.
That's astonishingly short-sighted. Yeah,
it's astonishingly thick.
Yeah, like how have you not tested this? Yeah, like again, this isn't new ground.
Yeah,
you have other things you can look at.
Yeah,
like we're kind of going off on a tangent here, but I have interesting stories. Number one, a guy who I used to work with when I was doing convention work, he went on to be one of the lead one of the lead production techs for Rooster Teeth, I think. And so he was the person who would be doing the tech for a game tournament. So obviously he would be a fascinating person to talk to about this, because he would be able to say, yeah, this is why we do it this way, these are the restrictions, and this is what I would love to have if it existed, kind of thing. And so I'm just like, man, I really want him to be in this room right now, because he would be able to give a fascinating insight into this. The other thing as well is just, however, sometimes people just, sometimes we say to this and we go, oh, you know, how did they do something that stupid? But I watched a really interesting video about the only official Dead by Daylight tournament ever to be held, and the cascade of just clown car fiesta terribleness that was the official Dead by Daylight tournament makes you go, how did they think this was going to go well? And just some people just get really far without knowing what they're doing, basically. So it's quite possible that whoever was running that F1 league just actually didn't know what they were doing, and at some point they had just fake it till they make it. They had assured the tournament owner, they'd said, yeah, we'll sort out all your tech, and the tournament owner has been like, do you know what you're doing? They're like, oh yeah, we've got X many years experience in organising tournaments. But they were doing CSGO tournaments, which runs on a potato. And they're like, no, you don't get it. This game requires a top spec PC to run properly, you know. And they just had not realised that. And now suddenly you've got the official league running with awful tech, because the production crew, they assured them that they had it, but they did not in fact have it.
Yeah, it's sufficiently
just
bad.
to cut in, Andreas Seagal, hello from Austria. Thank you very much for the €12. Hope you're having a lovely day. Please continue.
It's sufficiently bad that people were crashing out of sessions.
Oh no, yeah.
In official championships with official prize money.
Yeah. That's just cancel the tournament and reschedule it.
No, that's LOL, you guys crashed out, you get no points this race. You've lost the tournament.
I'd be livid. Yeah, I'd be actually livid, because obviously it costs money to train the team and go to the tournament. And if the tournament was run like that, I'd be like, we spent money to get here, and we invested to participate in this tournament, and this is what we got. You know, that's terrible, man. Is there any, like, has there been videos covering this or anything? I'd love to watch a video about this, just so I could be like, oh, that's terrible.
Not that I know of in that sense.
Yeah.
But just people complaining about it on Twitch and so on who were there. Because for some reason, everyone knows that the F1 games are a clown fiesta anyway.
Yeah.
Favorite thing, right? Another thing that was discovered during this.
Yeah.
The game that they are using for this official tournament has its physics tied to your frame rate.
That's still a thing in our Lord Jesus' year of 2024?
Your physics is tied to your frame rate. There is a thing in Formula One called porpoising, or bottoming out.
Yeah.
Right, because they're ground effect cars, they suck the cars down,
Yeah.
and when you hit the ground, you bottom out, you lose all downforce, and you pop back up again, and so on.
Yeah.
That happening affects your performance.
Yeah.
Unless it doesn't count, because your frame rate is at the correct frame rate for those bounces to not count.
Oh. So can you tune your game to run at a specific frame rate that will?
No, you just frame rate limit it using the frame rate limiter built into the game.
Oh no! So like how much, like what kind of frame rate limit do you need to go down to achieve that?
Like 40 FPS or something.
Yeah, which is sucky but playable.
Yeah, like 40 or 50 FPS.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah.
That's like that. I hesitate to use the word cheating, but that sounds like cheating to me.
But like,
yeah. Oh no, I hate it. This is like when there used to be the meta in CSGO about running your game at a weird aspect ratio to make bodies wider so they were easier to hit. I'm like, isn't that missing the point? Like, one of the interesting things about, like, again, I'm not an expert on competitive gaming, but this is one of the interesting things about Dead by Daylight as a game is it doesn't have graphics settings. Everyone is on the same playing field. And initially you'd be like, oh, how does that work? And it's like, well, it works kind of fair, because if you allowed people to dial the graphics down, people would just switch off all of the fog and grass effects, so you could see people through all of the bushes. So, yeah.
True. It just needs the game to be sufficiently performant that you can actually run it on whatever the only setting that exists is.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's obviously being like, there are no performance options, but this game is fully path traced and runs at 7 FPS.
Yes, it needs to actually be possible to run it reasonably.
Doesn't count.
Yeah.
But obviously turning around and being like, this is a quote-unquote indie game that runs at 400 FPS on a 6600 is entirely fine.
I think this is also just one of the reasons why a lot of esports games tend to be geared to run on very low-end hardware, because that also solves this problem. You know, they can make the minimum graphics settings to be completely reasonable and say, there's no way you can't run this. And if you can't run this, then you just have a 20-year-old computer, in which case I don't know what to tell you, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah.
World of Warships limits the game to 75 FPS, but you can go into the config file and change it. Interesting, yeah. I wonder how much that would affect the... Well, yeah, I mean, I guess there's going to be certain people... Yeah, no, I don't know enough about that game to think about how it would affect it, because, like, this has always been a thing about FromSoft games, so Dark Souls and nowadays Elden Ring, being 60 FPS locked, which, you know, the usual excuse is because competitive reasons, because theoretically a high frame rate would give you a competitive advantage, because you would see more animation, which would give you and more animation in Dark Souls would give you an advantage over your opponent.
I mean, it just running at 60 FPS gives you a competitive advantage.
I mean, they all run at 60 FPS. That's not difficult.
Eventually. 8 years after launch.
I didn't have problems with Elden Ring, except when I was running it on the Arc, which was really funny. But bless his cotton socks, it did a pretty good job. But yeah. Let's see. Did you watch the new Mad Max movie? No, I haven't been into films for a while at the moment. I have not watched anything of late, so I have no opinions there, I'm afraid.
Oh, Furiosa.
Yeah, I haven't heard good things, but also just, yeah, as I say, I haven't watched much, so yeah, no input there. Have played the, yeah. Well,
apparently it's got a 90% Rotten Tomato score.
Fair enough, yeah. I haven't played the Elden Ring DLC yet, no. It's on my radar. I'm currently trying to decide if I'm going to start a new character for it or not. Because the problem is just like, I'd have to play through I'd have to build up a new character through the original game before doing the DLC, which sounds like an awful lot of work, but also if I just dropped into one of my save files for Elden Ring, I'm going to load into that save file and be like, what is this? Who am I? Where am I? What is this build? You know, so yeah, haven't decided yet.
There is a skill lock on the DLC. You have to have beaten 2 of the optional bosses from the main game to be able to play the DLC content.
That makes sense. But well, having an actual hard lock in there is a bit odd. You know, makes more sense for them to put in some kind of warning somewhere, diegetically or otherwise, that sort of infers this DLC is designed to be played at approximately this level. You know.
Yeah. Also, FromSoft.
Yeah. I mean, in Dark Souls 3, you could go into Ashes of Ariandel by the time you were soul level 20. Between soul level 20 and 30, you could get into Ashes of Ariandel, but you would get your ass handed to you if you actually went in there at that level. And the skill check for that was you would go in there and get your ass handed to you, and you'd be like, wow, I'd better come back here later. So I'm not sure why they didn't do it, just do it that way. Ringed City was at least gated by needing to be into the end game to actually access it, so that, you needed to have cleared Ashes of Ariandel, which would require a high level, or you needed to have accessed the final area of the game to get to it. So just putting in a hard hardware lock is different. They're more than capable of just putting in a diegetic boundaries. But yeah.
I keep hearing when you say diegetic is diuretic.
No.
I'm just like,
yeah.
yes.
Right, okay, coming back onto some other stuff. Anything interesting through the shop this week? No, I don't have a video lined up, so I need to record something at the start of the week.
I need to fix a MacBook.
Actually, I've got. Well, I'm gonna have. There's an Asus gaming laptop, which has got no power. So I'm going to put that on the desk and be like, please don't be the PCH. Please don't be the PCH. Please don't be the PCH.
Oh, it's the PCH.
And then if it's the PCH, the video will probably get thrown out because
Why?
Because I don't think there's any value in a video that just goes of just looking at it going, the PCH is dead. But then I guess just showing people how to recognize that is something, just so people know when to quit.
Also a case of how did you know it was the PCH?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I think to me that's the thing that's useful is how did you know it was the PCH?
Yeah.
If it was the PCH, how did you know it was the PCH?
Yeah. All right, I'll keep it. I'll send it one way or the other.
20 channels?
Yeah.
Oh.
More on that in a moment. Have you come to a decision about the cheap NVMe drive from a few weeks ago? So this was the FICWAT drive. Yes, the FICWAT FN501 Pro. 5-year guarantee. You know what? I'm going to crystal disk benchmark it now. So I have been filling it with backups. And it got to about 90%. It got to about 95% full. It went into the red last week, I think it was. So I deleted a chunk of data from it. So now it's actually been filled up. Now is the time to actually test it. So I kind of wanted to do a couple of fills and deletes to see what its actual endurance was like first. But I'll fire up Crystal Disk Benchmark now and just see how it does. And yeah. Thus far, credit where it's due, it has seemed to be okay.
It has yet to it is yet to fail. There we go.
That's it. However,
where is the box? There is the box. It's an FM501 Pro.
Crystal Disk. Oh, that's Crystal Disk Info. Where the hell is Crystal Disk Mark? Do I not have? There it is. It is shortcutted on the desktop. All right.
Can I even buy an FM50? What's it? Doodad Pro.
Drive C, 4 gigabytes, all tests, go.
Oh yeah, you can.
Off it goes. I've been filling it with VR chat clips.
What size was that? Was that 1 terabyte?
1 terabyte, yeah.
Which you paid like £40.
£40 for, something like that. I think
they're 50 quid on AliExpress at the moment.
So the awesome price has disappeared, but
yeah, but they actually exist on AliExpress now.
Oh yeah, they weren't before.
Last time we looked.
Yeah, because that was one of the oddities of it, is we were having difficulty just identifying the existence of it.
Yeah, and the 2 terabyte one is 90 quid, which is
that's not bad. 2 terabytes for less than 100 quid. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually becomes quite good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's worth noting that I'm subjecting this drive to a lot more diligence than I would any other brand, which is kind of unfair. But also it just was suspiciously cheap as far as I was concerned. I'm like, it was below my price floor. That price point where you're like, if it costs less than this, there's no way that it's good. which is why I'm so suspicious of it. But yeah, right, the reads look good so far. Waiting for the writes, because that's the bit where I would expect it to fall over. No one is impressed by good read speeds. It's the writes that really split the ones. Did someone say cider? They did, but I'm probably going to pass on cider for now because I drank about 2/3 of a bottle of red last night and I've been feeling it all day. So yes.
The Crucial P3 Plus 1 terabyte for £43.
Oh yeah, that's all right.
Apparently.
Yeah. What are the M.2s that I bought recently? Because I think I bought some P3 Pluses. Yeah, I've actually got a P3 Plus here. So like that might be an interesting test. Is where did I put that? That might be an interesting test. Is you know, I do this test on the FicWhat now, see what it does, and then swap it out to this P3 Plus and give it exactly the same treatment. You know, it's not scientific because it's, you know, I haven't put exactly the same data on it and stuff like that, but approximately the same test. You know, put it in the backup station. Fill it up with backups and then do a test. Let's see. So Crystal Disk Benchmark has come back, and the random 4K ops. QDepth 32 is 407 and QDepth 1 is 161. That seems astronomically high. Am I going insane, or is it just been a hot minute since I've benchmarked drives?
Excuse me. Oh, I see. Huh. That's reasonably high.
It's certainly not bad, but yeah, I'd need to. I might screenshot that and then do the same thing with the P3 Plus. I think that would be a pretty good comparison, personally.
What's in that Dell?
This one, some generic 256 gig SSD. I mean,
Crystal Disk it.
Sure, all right.
What profile was that?
The default one, just 4 gig, 2 passes.
Oh yeah. Cool. Okay.
I don't know much about benchmarking SSDs, if I'm honest.
No, I just didn't know if you'd selected a custom one.
Yeah. Crystal Disk Mark.
Yes.
Oh no, not the FicWhats. Yeah. Have you had any issues with FicWhats? Genuine question, because that's the thing. It was a suspiciously cheap drive that we were told was very good, and I was like, "There's no way it's good at that price," but it seems fine.
Yeah.
You know, I'm despite we tried to find problems with it. We needled this drive. We were looking up reviews. We were looking up the specs.
Yeah. We also just needled everything to kind of be like.
Yeah.
Does any of this make any sense?
I guess. Suffice to say, we have struggled to find problems with it.
We've also kind of struggled to find diagnostic criteria. I presume you're looking for the
These
download.
are themes. Yeah, 2 themes. God. Crystal Disk, I love your anime themes, but please, I just want the software right now. Crystal Disk Mark Retro, Standard Edition, Anime Edition, different Anime Edition.
What?
Standard Edition. There it is. I found it.
Maybe.
Zip. There we go. I like anime waifus as well, but when I want to benchmark a disc, I don't care.
I also enjoy the fact that it's like, you know, a gig.
Yeah. Well, you need 8K waifus.
I need 8,000 waifus.
Yeah, although I'm not sure how like even 8K waifus would be a gigabyte, but yeah.
8,000 of them. 8,000 waifus.
8K resolution, you dingus. All right, let's go. Diskmark 64-bit on a random Dell. Let's give it the same treatment. 2 passes, 4 gigs, C drive. This is probably a thrashed SSD. So let's just get a rough comparison there. It is NVMe, but yeah, it is just...
It is an SSD.
Yeah.
It is solid.
Yeah.
It is in a state.
Yep. Yeah, it is the portable edition I've got. Oh, hey, look at that. It's done 3100 meg read. That's higher than I thought it would be, just for just a random NVMe disk in a 2020 laptop.
Yeah, so what is that? Sequential read at Q depth 8, thread count 1. Okay, fair.
All right. So, what's the second one?
So this is 3465 and then 2821.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's clocked in at 1280. What is that second number? What is that?
Is the sequential at Q depth 1, thread length 1.
Q depth 1 sequential, yeah.
Which is the more important one, I would contend.
Yeah, because you kind of want worst case scenarios.
Oh. I couldn't work out quite what was going on here.
I see.
Because that looked like it was a part of the power supply. I was like, why is there a random cable just in the side of a power supply?
All right, then this one has pulled 400 4K Q depth 32 reads, which is, again, not as good as that one, but it's not bad. And Q depth 1, it pulled 42, which is a lot more kind of the numbers that I would expect to see. So yeah, that one pulling 68 megs Q depth 1 4K random ops, that seems pretty good to me for just again, if we're assuming cheap SSDs, we're not looking for blockbuster numbers here. That seems like a really good sign. So now coming in at the writes, yeah, this one is absolutely falling over for write speeds. It's coming in at like 700 versus 3000, 2500,
Yeah.
So to put things in perspective, those numbers actually seem to be realistic and pretty decent.
Yeah.
Is basically what I'm seeing here. So yeah, I think the final test would be for me to, I'd need to get some data. I want to do just a file transfer to it where I put, say, 200 gigs of data onto an external SSD and just try and copy it on there and just see what transfer rates it manages to sustain. Because that's the part where you actually see it fall over.
Don't forget, you'll need to make sure that the SSD supplying that drive is fast enough and can sustain it.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
kind of the issue with testing all of this, is you're just kind of like, ugh.
Yeah. Then random 4K writes Q depth 1, 138 versus 161.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So to me, in real world numbers, on the Q depth 1, thread length 1, we are looking at very similar performance.
Yeah. But yeah.
But the headline sequential transfers and so on, it's much higher.
Yeah, I think also like the important thing as well is that it has not fallen over. It has not collapsed, because basically my prediction is that being a cheap SSD, it would work well out of the box the first time you write to it, and then as soon as it had actually been filled up and then you were overwriting, it would just completely collapse. That was my prediction, and that has not happened.
Yeah.
So that being the case, as far as I'm concerned, it's passed the litmus test. If you're building a budget computer, it works just fine. We're not expecting it to be the fastest. There's not a doubt in my mind that we could put a Samsung in there and it would obliterate those numbers, but that's not what we're testing for.
Yeah. I think
the Samsung costs 3 times the price.
Yeah.
It better obliterate it,
I think the thing that would be interesting for comparison is, I don't know if there's manufacture dates on these. Probably kind of in those codes. But if you could get 3 of these with 3 different manufacture dates, 2 or 3 of them with different manufacture dates, and see if the performance is within 10% of the 3 manufacture dates.
Consistency, yeah.
Because this one might be a really good one.
Yeah, maybe.
But the next 2 you buy perform at 1/10 of that performance.
Yeah.
But the same, this one's a really good P3 Plus.
Yeah.
The other two are garbage.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So it's kind of a case of that's the problem in the position we're in with SSDs.
Yeah, and that might be what you end up paying for with Crucial instead of ThickWatt, for example, is the ThickWatts are inconsistent, whereas the Crucial P3 Plus always gives decent performance every time.
Yeah.
Or within a margin of within a margin.
Yeah, it might even be slower than this one, but every single one of them is within
the
2%.
same speed.
So you know you're getting this performance.
Yeah.
And kind of to a degree you're paying for that reliability on performance. But obviously that requires data.
Yeah. What's the smart info on the ThickWatt? I mean, what parameter? Smart is a list of parameters that long that are largely meaningless unless you're a forensic analysis person. Which bit are you after?
So yeah.
The ThickWatt seems to be a darn good deal. Yeah, I mean, certainly, it depends on what prices are doing. Because I think at the time when we were shopping around, the P3 Plus was annoyingly expensive. It was, for example, £60 versus like £42 for this thing.
Yeah.
And so this was a case of, that is pleasantly cheap, but I just don't know if I can trust the brand. But it seems like it was a good buy. And certainly at this point, I'm like, man, I wish I'd bought 5 of them. Because it seems to have been fine.
Also, to a degree, it doesn't matter if you can trust the brand or not if you're buying from Amazon.
Yeah.
Because Amazon replaces the warranty.
Yeah. The problem is no errors, though. Well, no, it's the drive has. Sure. I mean, this is the thing. Everyone goes check smart, but no one knows what smart means. No.
I'll be
No one knows what smart means. But yes, what was I going to say? Yeah, the only problem with that remark you said, that you're still good if you're buying from Amazon, is the problem is that most of the time when I'm buying SSDs, I'm buying them to put into customer computers, and the issue there is that I will never know if the drive has dropped off in performance or ended up being a lemon. The customer is very unlikely to notice that or come back and complain about that. Confidence in the product is really important to me because I won't be the one using it. That's the thing there.
Yeah, but as long as it's faster than a hard drive.
I guess, but like if I'm building someone a reasonably priced gaming PC, I don't want faster than a hard drive. I want a decent SSD that they're not going to get laughed at for,
This drive has done 1.3 terabytes of written, I think. No, wait, 12 terabytes written, sorry. I put a 0 in the wrong place.
The health is at 99%.
12 terabytes written to a 256 gig drive.
Yeah.
That's a lot of drive fills.
I mean, is it though?
Well, yeah. It's 48 drive fills.
Yeah, but the amount of data that actually gets read and written to a system drive is quite a lot. So, that's the thing is, yeah. Like, let's see. This one, by comparison, yeah, has done 1 terabyte, which is about right because I've filled it up about once.
Oh yeah, and it's a 1 terabyte drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Other than that, it's at 100% health, and there are no notes on it. So, yeah, that's the thing is, I don't know how. That's the thing is, I don't know how much that data actually tells us. I don't know if that actually tells us anything particularly useful. Or at the very least, I've not looked at that number on enough computers to actually gauge whether that's any good. And like, if you looked at it on a computer and it was astronomically high, can we then see a measurable drop of performance from there? You know, that's the thing. This is kind of like when people look at how many miles a car has done. Mileage on a car doesn't actually tell you much, because it doesn't tell you anything about what kind of mileage that is. And I feel like this is kind of the same thing. Like, obviously, writes are writes. You know, it's going to wear out the drive, so that does give you an impression there. But that's it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much that actually tells us about what kind of life the drive has lived. So yeah. That health stat can fall off a cliff real fast. It's not always linear. Yeah, I would kind of treat the health stat like I would treat the health stat on a battery. Whereas, you know, if you get a battery that's like at 85% health, people would be like, oh, well, that's not too bad. That's still 85%. No, that's actually pretty worn out for a battery. As soon as you hit 80%, the battery's basically done. You know, so I would fully believe that the health status on an SSD is kind of the same. Is, you know, it's it can drop off pretty quickly, because once you've had any kind of significant wear, that's going to have an adverse effect on it. But who knows? That this is all a factor of the kind of NAND that's being used, the kind of cache that's being used, whether it's been sequential writes or not. You know, how much garbage collection it's been able to do, how well it's been trimming.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many This is why I don't like Smart, and this is why I kind of scoffed at the idea of looking at Smart, is that, yeah, there is a lot of data here, and if you're an expert, you can decode this data, but, you can understand this data, but I think if you're using decoding techniques where you're looking at the one number that you can understand, like how much data has been written to the drive, I think you're only getting a partial picture there. And I think, I'm not saying that it's bad, but I think you should be careful before drawing conclusions from decoded data, basically. And by this I'm saying I don't know enough about this to make sense of it. And I think most people who are looking at this probably don't know enough about it to make sense of it. Also, though, this is me being extremely cynical, though, you know. How many fills are reasonable for an SSD to achieve? That's a good question. I mean, I guess we could start figuring this out, because SSDs do have a minimum write before failure value on them. And so that, I guess, would be the answer to that. And so let's look up the P3 Plus minimum writes before failure. Crucial P3 Plus minimum minimum write before failure. Is that MWFBS? I think that's the thing. View specifications. I forget what the actual name of the stat. Blah 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 blah. Heck. Nope, they don't say. Thanks. I hate it.
Because for comparison, the warranty on a Samsung 980 250 gig is 150 terabytes written.
Okay, there's our number then. So 250, did you say?
Is 150 terabytes
150
written.
Terabytes, yeah.
Yeah.
On a 256.
On a 250 gig one.
Yeah. So 150. So on a Samsung, 150 terabytes written. So that makes the 12 that this is done seem paltry.
Yeah.
You know, obviously this isn't a high-end Samsung, but even if we assume that it's only capable of a quarter of what the Samsung is capable, it's still midlife, basically. Because this is a 4-year-old second-hand laptop, you just kind of assume that the SSD is thrashed.
Yeah. Even for the 860 QVO, they're giving 360 terabytes written for the 1 terabyte model.
Yeah. And
that's a lot fewer total drive fills, but...
Yeah, Lead Farmer just said the P3 Plus 500 is 110. So, again, that makes these that makes the numbers that we were getting from here seem completely insignificant. And realistically, just modern SSDs have very good advertised endurance. So really, it just comes down to a fact of whether their caching system sucks and will fall over or not. Because that's basically what we saw on older SSDs, is the caches on them just completely melted after a couple of write cycles, where it's not that the drive had worn out, it's just simply that the write performance tanked. That was the actual problem.
Yeah.
And it's extremely difficult to get a straight answer on what that really looks like, but everyone knows it when they see it, because certainly, I don't know about everyone else, but I have owned at least 2 or 3 SSDs that have been in my PC at home that were good brand SSDs. They were Intels, they were Crucials, they were maybe I don't think a Samsung actually, but yeah, probably Intel or Crucial, where, you know, I've gone to copy, 50 gigabytes of data to it, and it's been like 1 gig per second, 100 meg per second for the rest of it. And that's the problem. That's what I'm actually living in fear of. That's what I don't want to happen. But it's really, whenever you say to someone, yeah, but will the transfer speed fall off a cliff? No one ever seems to have an answer to that, because it's the thing that never actually seems to get checked. Is that a linear relationship for larger drives, presumably with terabytes written before failure? I don't know about linear. Certainly a higher capacity drive is going to have more endurance because it has more space to wear level. So it has more, because SSDs are going to do wear leveling, whereas NAND is like inscribing on a stone tablet. You inscribe stuff onto a stone tablet, and when you want to erase it, you scrape off the top layer, basically, and that wears the tablet down a little bit. Now, if you always, if you write in the top left of the tablet, then scrape off the top left, and then write, and then scrape, and so on, you're going to start digging a hole into the tablet there. So what you actually do is you always write somewhere else on the drive where there is the least amount of wear on it. So this is wear leveling. And because SSDs are completely oblivious to fragmentation, because they have a functionally zero access time, you can write the data and you can fragment it all across the drive to evenly wear down the drive. And if the drive is higher capacity, you have more space to do this wear leveling, which means a high capacity drive has inherently higher endurance. But obviously there's going to be some kind of relationship to that. I don't know if it's linear or not, but bigger drives have more endurance. This is the same reason as to why with mobile phones, certainly in recent history, it was advisable to buy mobile phones with a higher capacity, not because you needed that space, but because the 16 gig phones and 32 gig phones would wear down really fast. But if you bought the 128, that storage is going to last way longer because it can wear level across all of that space. Try OCZ. Lol. Although that much being said, OCZ, that's basically Kioxia now, isn't it? And Kioxia are fine.
Now, yeah.
Yep. Obviously, they're not the same company in any meaningful way.
No.
They're not even the same fabrications or the same process nodes. So,
no.
Yeah. However, if you said buy an OCZ drive for the lols, you're basically saying buy a Kioxia, and Kioxia are fine.
Yeah.
They are, well, their low end is fine and their high end is very good.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that's why your HP Stream is the ultimate device. Funny joke. Sabrent lists 1665 terabytes written for the original rocket. Is that a typo? Do you mean 165? Or do you actually mean 1665?
Who? What? Eh?
Plus Nomad.
Oh.
Yeah. Because that has to be a typo. That has to be a typo. Because they're saying that their drives are an order of magnitude better than Samsung.
Hey, weren't Sabrent the ones who were found wanting on their warranties for the first couple of generations of SSDs that they released.
Ironically, hear me out here, Sabrent are the modern day OCZ. They've got some stonking fast drives, but they also seem to be just redlining everything, which means the endurance and the endurance and the long-term reliability of their drives is extremely questionable. And that was the problem with OCZ. They were pulling mad numbers back in the day, but they were doing that just by basically redlining the drive and just thrashing the nuts off of it, which just shredded the drive within a year. 1665 is legitimately what Sabrent say. Yeah, see, this is the thing. We've seen this before, where someone puts in a typo on one spec sheet and that gets copy-pasted to everywhere else because that spec sheet was the original source. I think that's a typo. Based on the fact that Samsung were aiming for the hundreds of terabytes written, saying that you can do the thousands of terabytes written, that sounds like a typo. Back reading chat while I munch. It's not a typo. Some drives can handle a few thousands of. Maybe on like commercial drives. Maybe Sabrent are using the same NANDs that you would see in enterprise. It's 260 on the QLC. Alright. Yeah, it certainly sounds extremely optimistic. Off topic, sorry boys. To be honest, we've kind of reached the end of this topic anyway, so I'm grateful for a segue. Do you trust any of those programs that download tons of apps automatically to your PC? It kind of depends on what it is, really. Because, there are certain things which do make this very straightforward, but I've always erred away from them because, personally, I can see the use of them, but also I'm like, I don't think it's like, you're not going to install hundreds of apps because you're going to fill your PC with junk. You're actually going to install maybe 10 apps. Bless.
Oh, excuse me.
You're actually going to install like 10 apps or something like that that are supported by this, I would say. And where was I going? Yeah, and I just don't think that's a huge amount of work just to go and get the installers for those directly from the website. So yeah, I've seen them before. There's probably a couple of them that can be used. Like, to give an example though, when we're doing overclocking, we use Benchmate, and that's an app that downloads a bunch of apps automatically for you. But also that's a very carefully curated one, and it's for a very specific purpose, so it kind of makes sense at that point. Are all the AM4 rigs now gone? No, not yet. We only built one last week or the week before, so.
So, Kioxia's warranty on their PM7-V series enterprise SAS SSDs for mixed-use write-heavy enterprise environments offer a drive warranty of 8,760 terabytes written.
Gosh. Yeah, commercial drive strong.
That is their lowest total.
That's why they're heckin' expensive, though, I guess. It's the top tier NAND in that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wonder how they know. I wonder how they bin NAND. Like, how do they know what the good stuff is and what the bad stuff is? Let's see. Yeah, Duma's got an interesting one here. He says, I've got a 256 gig rocket. Sabran application says 100% good after 16 terabytes written and 35k hours. Crystal Disk says 85%. So that's kind of interesting that you've got contradicting numbers there. Crystal Disk must be calculating the health differently, or the Sabran application is just lying through its teeth.
If you need it, you can get 700,000 terabytes written as a warranty option.
Damn. And probably about 10 megs per second write speed, but, you know. Because that's probably it as well. I'd imagine these commercial disks are probably slower than enthusiast drives. Because that's probably how they do it, is that they don't run the disks as hard, or the drives as hard. Because where they're probably going to be in some kind of RAID array, the actual per drive load is lower than a single drive on its own in an enthusiast rig.
I said PM, didn't I? Yeah. I closed the specs.
I use Patch My PC. It's like Ninite, bit of program. Yeah, but like, what does that actually do for you, though, Marcus? What is that installing for you?
The post
Windows Update, Chrome.
The posted performance figures from Kioxia are a minimum of 3.4 gigabytes per second sequential write.
Yeah, that's pretty standard then.
Yeah, 3.4 gigs a second is the minimum speed, is the specification.
Yeah, update all apps. That's the thing. Like, how many apps are people running on their piece? Like, this is the problem. I get the feeling that everyone's going, oh, it keeps your Adobe Reader up to date. Who cares? Use Chrome. It's like, oh, it keeps your Chrome up to date. Chrome is already up to date because it updates itself. Like, I don't have any automatic updaters on my computer except for maybe Chrome and Windows Update. And like most of my other apps, things like, you know, Handbrake, that gets an update every 6 months. I open Handbrake and it says, there's an update available. And I go, okay, update. That's where my resistance is coming from here. I'm just like, I don't understand why this needs to exist because yeah.
What do I have on my
I have to update my automatic driver update utility. I'm glad that's pre-revenue saying that because that means I know you're joking.
Does it though?
I hope so.
Does it actually?
Pre-revenue, tell me you're joking, please. Tell me you're joking. I need to know.
What do I have installed on my computer that I install separately?
Yeah.
Go XLR for my audio interface.
Okay.
Steam, Epic. EA Origin, I guess.
All of those are updating themselves anyway. Go XLR maybe no, but also it's just like, it's not like that needs updates all the time.
Yeah, it's got built-in auto update.
Yeah.
Ubisoft, what's it, Majigger? Uplay, thingy.
All of these update themselves.
Firefox.
Updates itself.
I'm just trying to think of literally every program
That's
I have.
That's it. Yeah.
Custom build of MPC HC, which auto updates it doesn't update itself. It goes, click here to download the updater. You click there, it downloads the updater, you run the updater.
Yeah. It's
Sky, the Sky Go app. There we go. I was like, that was one I just thought of, but that updates itself as well.
It's the same as these debloating apps. I just don't think they're actually solving a problem. Like, they do a thing and they do what they say they do, but I don't think they're actually solving a problem.
But it's just like, all of those update themselves.
Yeah.
But that's all the stuff I can think of that I have.
Yeah.
And like, I guess the only thing that would be kind of handy.
Yes, it was facetious. Thank you, pre-revenue. We needed to be sure.
I guess the only thing that would be handy is if there was some way of running the installers for these programs with flags on them, so they would auto sign in. So they would be signed into your accounts.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can keep a little installer doodad on your second hard drive.
Yeah.
You reinstall Windows, you run that installer doodad, it installs everything, and it's injected the credentials into the installer, so you're auto signed in.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can see that being actually overly helpful.
And then, Quentin says, and also like I'm getting the same vibe from a couple of other people. What it's useful for is it creates a batch file for installing apps which you can save for when you build a new PC. I tell you what also does that is just having a Windows image. Like for ages I said I didn't do Windows images. Now I actually knock out a reasonable number of secondhand laptops. I have a snapshot image for Windows 11 that's just already configured with everything that I put on it. That's what I've actually been doing with this one. That's why the back cover was off this. I pulled the drive out, plugged it into that computer, restored my Windows 11 image to it, put it back in here. It's basically ready to go now. Yeah. I've already done this. I don't need a PXE server. I don't need Nanite. I don't need a slipstreamed thing. I've built Windows in the image that I want it to be, and I've snapshotted it. The only thing I need to do is just now and then I've got to restore that snapshot to a drive, hit Windows Update, and just bring it up to date, and then snapshot it again just to keep that image up to date. But that's a once every couple of months thing,
Yeah.
And to be fair, there's all kinds of ways to bake a cake, I'm not saying this is invalid. You do what works for you.
I guess restoring a snapshot is faster than running the Windows installer.
It depends on how big the total volume is, but like my Windows build is pretty simple. Basically,
sorry, I meant literally. I install Windows to this SSD.
Yeah.
Pull the power out. Take the SSD out. Yeah. Snapshot it. Take this SSD. Snapshot from here to there.
Yeah.
End.
A raw Windows install is probably going to be less hassle. Well, I mean, it depends because I think time for time.
I'm not saying about hassle or anything like that. Raw time to get to desktop effectively.
So, assuming that you are hyper focused and you were going next, do this, all the key sequences.
Yeah.
Because that's the bit that I'm thinking factoring in the labor time basically.
Yeah.
Because one of them's a progress bar, the other one requires you to be there doing inputs. Yeah. And so, however, probably about the same speed. But also, that's not actually a real-world situation.
Interesting, yeah.
Because,
I expected Snapshot to be slower.
Fair enough, yeah. Probably about the same, because you're only restoring 20 or 30 gigabytes of data. And on a modern drive, that just takes no time anyway.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Realistically, the reason why you're doing this is everyone's customized Windows in their own personal way. For me, I do some slight layout customizations, desktop icons. I like to align the start bar to the left because I think that's a bit more familiar for people who are familiar with Windows 10. I install Chrome, make sure Chrome is pinned on the start menu and the taskbar, things like that. That's more or less the extent of the customization that I've done with Windows installs, fairly light touch. So even if there were one or two other things that I installed, that's still going to be a small install that will be 0 time to restore as a snapshot image. So yeah, how do you handle duplicate SSIDs? So this is disk SSIDs, right?
What?
Sorry, SSID. Wait.
What?
Sorry, elaborate. SSIDs? What's in what context? Because I'm hearing wireless network there now, and I'm like, yeah, that's something else. Windows 11, Windows 10 still better for latitude. Windows 10 is dead. Upgrade. I say that running Windows 10 at home, but that's because my VR headset isn't going to support Windows 11. However, remember, Windows 10 dies next year. Don't give people Windows 10.
Don't sell people a Windows 10
You need
device.
to get people onto 11. Do not wait for the 11th hour. We need to get people onto 11 because 10 is going to die. The clock is ticking. We have to get people onto 11. It doesn't matter which you prefer anymore. 10 dies next year. It doesn't matter if you think it's better. It's still dying next year. That's just the reality we're in now. So yeah. Disk UID, yeah. So that doesn't matter basically. The only time you get a disk ID collision is if you restore a snapshot onto a drive with the If I snapshot drive C on that and then restore it to another drive, there will immediately be a there will be an ID collision. However, if you take that drive out and put it in another computer, there's no longer a collision because the drives are in different computers. So it basically doesn't matter. And if you do actually need to resolve the collision, this is solved with one command in diskpart. You literally just go diskpart, select drive, online drive, and it recreates the ID. So it's basically a non-issue. First thing I do is drag Edge into the recycle bin. See, I don't bother doing that because every time there's a Windows update, they just make another Edge icon. So I actually just leave it there because the problem is Microsoft are going to plop down a new Edge icon, and that's going to confuse the customer because a new icon will appear. And they'll be like, where did this come from? But if it was always there, it won't confuse them. However, Microsoft, please stop forcing Edge and Copilot. Isn't there almost like 5 more years of support you can buy? Probably. I still need to read up on what the support line for that looks like, but also that basically means you're going to be paying for support after the fact, and that just seems like a really dumb thing to do unless there is a technical reason why you can't upgrade. Paying to stay on Windows 10 out of stubbornness is just dumb, in my opinion. SID is not disk ID. Okay, I'm going to Google it because no one's telling me. Disk SID. Security identifier. No, that's for users. I think we're talking about the same thing. I'm just using the wrong term because I can't remember it. Oh, SSIDs are the Windows Unique Internal Identification Numbers. Oh, yes, I see what you mean now, yeah. I haven't seen that cause an issue.
What would the issue be?
That two computers would think they are the same, two Windows installations think that they are the same computer. So this might be an issue for like piracy reasons, but I've never actually seen it cause an issue. Because if Windows goes, hey, I'm on a different hardware now, then it's just going to check if there's a valid. It's going to check if there's a valid Windows product key, and it's going to check if it's in BIOS. It's going to find one in the BIOS of the new computer and just use that instead. So yeah, never seen it cause an issue. PC name again, unless you're going to use all of the computers on the same network, it doesn't matter. And yeah. It just doesn't. It's not an issue that I've ever seen be a problem. You can go through and you can change these if you want, but yeah, I've not seen that cause an issue. Hmm. 65% of users say Microsoft will keep upgrading Windows 10 after next year. They may well, you know, like I've been saying. From the release of Windows 11, and when Microsoft said they were going to kill Windows 10 in 2025, I've been saying all along that I find that hard to believe. But we're 15 months away from the deadline now, 16 months, and Microsoft are putting up messages on everyone's computer saying we're ending support next year. You know, basically, I find it very
14th October.
Yeah, I find it very difficult to believe that Microsoft will successfully kill Windows 10 next October. However, everything that Microsoft says that they're going to do it, and there is no evidence that they will not carry out their threat. The only evidence we have that they will not carry out their threat is historical, is past history from previous versions of Windows, where Microsoft said XP dies on this year, or 7 dies on this year, and then it's had another extension, and then another extension. They've extended the previous Windows lifetimes like 3 times, kind of thing. That's why we've always said, no, that's not going to happen. But, I don't know, man. It really looks like Microsoft are going to make good on this threat. And the reasons why we should believe them is that this is what they say they're going to do. This is what the updates that they're putting out say they're going to do. And also, Microsoft want to get started on Windows 12. They can't do that while Windows 10 has support, because they would then have to support 3 systems. And that's a really bad place for Microsoft to be. So this is the thing. If we make a checklist of reasons to believe that Windows 10 will die next year, you know, what Microsoft say they're going to do, what Microsoft are telegraphing that they're going to do, what an analyst would say is the smart thing for Microsoft to do, reasons why Microsoft won't kill 10 next year, old versions of Windows. At the moment, there is a lot more evidence to believe that Microsoft will make good on their threat than there is that they won't make good on that threat. So, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to assume that they're going to make good on their threat. And the worst thing that can happen is that I'm wrong and everyone's running the latest version of Windows. And I don't know about you, but that seems like a pretty safe bet to me. So yeah. Another problem with killing Windows 10, what to do with all the obsolete hardware. This is a tough one. Like at the end of quarter 3 2025, when Windows 10 goes out of support, anything that can't support Windows 11, we're basically talking 7th gen Intel, which was 7700K release date. 2017. Okay, well, fine. That sounds not that long ago, but next year that will be 8 years. So basically, any computer that is 8 years or older will essentially be obsoleted. And there are some instances where that's kind of gonna suck. But the other thing to remember is that there are versions of Windows 11 that will run on those, unsupported. But let's remember what support means, and I'll reiterate it because, again, people just don't seem to understand this. Support means you can phone up Microsoft and say, I've got a problem with Windows, and Microsoft are obligated to fix it because they supply that product. That's what support means. Now, you can make Windows 11 run on unsupported hardware right now, and you're running unsupported Windows, which means it works. But if you have a problem with it, you're on your own. And that's what all of those computers will actually fall into. And there will be at least earlier builds of Windows 11, like 23H2. Like 24H2's, well, we still don't know what 24H2 is going to look like because they keep changing it. But 23H2 is the current version of Windows 11. That will still work on a 7700K. In 2026. So, and by the time that build is a hard, you can't run this anymore because it's critically out of date, your 7700K is now going to be 10 years old. And in which case, it's like, you're running a decade-old computer, I don't know what to tell you. You know. That's my take on that. You know, it's a rough transition, but I don't think, and I think there are going to be some people that do get the short end of the stick, And there's not a doubt in my mind that someone can go, what about XYZ? Or I've got this computer that I need for XYZ. I'm going to be like, you know what? Yeah, you got screwed there. That sucks.
But also...
But you're going to be in a small minority, and Microsoft, they can't account for everyone.
But also, nothing's stopping you from using that system. But it's a case that you need to accept the fact that it's now no longer suggested to be connected to a network.
Yeah.
So if you still have to use it to control a thing, use it to control a thing not connected to a network.
Yeah. Yeah, and like people are saying, use Linux. Yeah, use Linux. If you really don't want to buy a new computer to replace what will be an 8 to 10-year-old system, put Linux on it then. You know? So, yeah. Also a completely valid option. This is the thing, is just, you know, like, I'm not trying to rag on people or anything like that, but it gets increasingly difficult to sympathize with people that insist that Microsoft should support their ancient computer. And once again, remember what support means. Support means that Microsoft is obligated to make sure that their software works on an obsolete system. That is not reasonable. It just isn't. Apple sure as hell don't do that. As soon as your Apple device is 5 years old, Apple don't care. They will tell you to buy a new one. And they'll do it with a smile on their face and their hand in your pocket. So, you know, that's the thing, is you get a lot more from Microsoft as it is. And this is also based on the previous rant I've done about how many people who are running Windows 10 who actually paid for Windows 10. And when I did this rant recently, there were a bunch of people in the chat who was just like, I bought Windows 10 Pro for 90 quid. I'm like, all right, fair. I'm not sure why, but fair. However, you're in a minority. The majority of people did not buy Windows 10,
but
yet
also
demand infinite support.
But
from
also,
Microsoft.
if you bought Windows 10, guess what? You can upgrade to 11 for free.
Sure.
It's
well,
free.
if you bought Windows 10 for your 7700K.
You can then take that license onto your next computer and continue to use it.
Again, Microsoft are not obligated to support your 7700K forever. So yeah, like I feel like I'm being a downer here, and I feel like I'm being a jaded YouTuber. But you know, like I feel like this just requires repeating, because I see the same old comments. Like not necessarily just with you guys in this chat, but just in other YouTube videos, in other chat rooms. Every time there's every now and then, some idiot tech website will run, you know, oh, Windows 11 deliberately breaks old systems. And then you read into it and it's just like, they don't support Core 2 quads.
Yeah.
Come on, guys, you're doing this to yourselves. You know, I don't know what to tell you. So, yeah. Graham is going to go sweet on Linux as soon as he migrates. No, I don't care. I run Windows. Don't get me wrong. Well, I tell you what. I'm interested in Linux from the perspective of stuff like gaming handhelds. Like, this is one of the reasons why I wish I had a use for a Steam Deck. Because I really want a Steam Deck. Because I really want to see whether... I really want to see how well Valve are managing to get all of these games running on Linux. Because like gaming is one of the last bastions of Windows supremacy. And yeah, I get it. Lots of games run on Linux now. But we all know that it's not a sure thing, and it's not something you'd recommend to your kid brother. You know, if you're gaming on Linux, you should expect to go into that with the mind that there are some things that you're going to have to make it work or fiddle with some things. These are facts, and anyone who says otherwise, I think, is probably lying. But you know, Valve and what's the abstraction layer that the Steam Deck uses?
What, Proton?
Proton, yeah. Valve and the Proton community, because obviously the Proton community have done a lot of the heavy lifting here. They've done an insane job about bringing that forward. And that's kind of exciting, because that does lend credence to a world where Linux is actually a viable option, like really a viable option for a gaming PC, and makes me wonder, maybe I could run Linux, you know. So yeah, you know, I'm not super against it. However, at the moment, Windows works, and I have no reason to leave Windows.
I think separately, just my issue with all of the handhelds and stuff is, yeah, as you said, I have absolutely no use for one.
Yeah, I think they're really cool,
Because
and I really wish I did have a useful one.
I can't see any situation where I would be content denigrating myself with the experience of playing on one of them.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I can play the latest AAA game at sub 720p, below lowest minimum settings, and hope for 30 FPS.
See, yeah.
Or I can play them in a comfortable chair, at a desk, on a big screen, at 4K, 120 Hz, max settings.
See, for me,
And it's like, to me, I just don't know. Yeah,
well,
for
this
me,
is
it
why
just doesn't work.
This is why I don't see the point of the high-end ones and everyone running AAA games on the Asus Ally and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is why I'm more interested in something like a Steam Deck playing indie games, because as far as I'm concerned, that's a grown-up's Game Boy kind of thing. And
Yeah,
as a
I
Game
guess.
Boy kid, you know, I've always liked the pleasure of just sitting in the living room armchair with a Game Boy kind of thing, you know. And that's kind of what I want to get. But the reason why I haven't bought one is that I don't have an armchair in my living room. I have a desk and a gaming PC there.
Yeah.
And I don't travel, so I don't need a handheld out and about. I really want to have a use for them, and I think they do have uses.
Yeah.
But all the uses that people can list for them are things where I go, but I don't do that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. For me, it's a
If you
case of
commuted on a
just,
train for an hour every day, man, that'd be a great time to have a handheld like that.
it wouldn't for me. Because I'd be like, or I could have a better experience in higher quality at home,
Yeah, maybe.
kind of thing. So yeah, it's like I want my experiences when I'm away from my computer at home to be different experiences,
Yeah,
doing things that I'm not doing on that computer, because I know I can do it better on that computer.
yeah,
So it's kind of, yeah, for me, it's a very, it needs to be a very different experience and function.
yeah. Oh, Jason Budney points out, if you run any games with anti-cheat, you're going to be shit out of luck most times on Linux. Yeah, that's an ongoing issue. So obviously that's that's specific to mostly esports games and stuff like that. But anti-cheat systems not running on Linux is currently an issue, and that's a
That's
a gaming
an issue
issue.
in basically any multiplayer game.
Mm.
So you can't play Helldivers on Linux, for example,
Again, because of the anti-cheat, I
because
assume.
easy anti-cheat doesn't
Yeah.
work on Linux.
Yeah,
You
precisely.
can't play Killing Floor 2 because the anti-cheat doesn't work on Linux.
Yeah, that's precisely the point. So
But
that
they're
seems to
not
be
esports games. They're just
okay.
multiplayer games. That's
Sure.
what I'm saying.
Oh, right, yeah.
It messes you up for just standard multiplayer
Sure.
games as well, which is a massive issue.
Any game that has a competitive
Yeah.
element, which is fundamentally most multiplayer games.
Yeah,
Then.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we're splitting hairs on that, but yes, certainly though, yes, that would that's a problem that doesn't seem to have an end in sight, because despite all of the pushback against current anti-cheat implementations, most publishers don't seem to have any interest in doing anything about that.
Yeah.
And that's because, I think, just because to an extent at the moment, broadly speaking, those anti-cheat systems work. Certainly they're better than nothing at the moment. And like case in point, when when Fall Guys first came out, cheating was horrendous. You could expect to see a cheater in almost every single round of Fall Guys that you would play. Then they implemented anti-cheat, and the cheating was gone. Instant, gone.
Yeah.
Completely solved.
Yeah.
Now, was easy anti-cheat the best solution to that, instead of them just fixing their code? I don't know. I'm not a developer. However, it's easy to see why publishers are looking at this being like, it works. It has, and in games where it doesn't work, it makes the problem go from untenable to tolerable. There's going to be some cheaters that are slipping around or evading the system, but they're playing with fire. You know.
It's also kind of a case of it depends on what category of cheater you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, some people will specifically create a new EA account, a new Steam account, whatever, for whatever game it is, buy the game on that account.
Well, this is
play
why
until they get banned, burn the account, make a new account, buy the game again.
Yeah, well, that brings in an interesting question then, because this is one of the areas where Epic don't mess about, and also Vanguard, which is the Riot anti-cheat system, they don't mess around either, because they fingerprint your system ID. So you can't just spin up another account. You've got to you've got to change your system ID, and that's a lot harder. That generally means new motherboard. I think realistically, your motherboard is, if you know, if you're going to go, okay, what is the simplest way to change my system ID? Probably the motherboard. Otherwise, you've got to replace at least 3 or 4 other components before the hardware has changed enough to change the ID.
I'm sure there's some reasonably easy way of shimming that, though.
I don't know.
You can probably just stick something on on the SPI channel and go, I'm a different serial numbered motherboard.
Yeah, maybe. But that much being said, we're now requiring cheaters to go to quite a high degree of effort, and most cheaters aren't geniuses. They bought cheat software. Yeah. But then I suppose the cheat software could have just a one-click change system ID button that does this for you, couldn't
Effectively.
it?
Or so, they just say, plug this into your internal USB header.
Yeah. So, that's... Yeah.
But obviously it increases the level of difficulty and effort that is actually required.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a good thing. Increasing that level of difficulty.
SM BIOS edit. Yeah, see, again, a lot of these edits are going to be unique for the type of computer. It's going to be difficult to do a one-click solution to that, which is basically what you would need to effectively defeat this system. Because the average person has bought a cheat engine system. They have no idea what any of this means, and they go, I got banned, I need to be unbanned. They're going to want a one-click solution, and I just don't think you can make a change system ID one-click solution without a lot of hassle.
Yeah.
Proxmox, well, now you're saying I cheated. Again, cheaters aren't geniuses. They went onto the shady website and they bought a cheat engine for Bitcoin or Cash App. They're not.
They just bought it with their credit card.
Yeah, well, fine. They're not running Proxmox servers. So anti-cheats just need to be good enough to weed out the vast majority. That's exactly it, and that's why you say easy anti-cheat is absolute hot garbage. There's not a doubt in my mind that it is, but if it filters out 99% of the cheaters, that's pretty good going as far as the publisher is concerned.
It depends on how much it fucks up the rest of your computer, though. Just because some of the anti-cheats have been... have caused
Yeah, Dr. Galvani says some anti-cheats are man-in-the-middle hacks. It
is very much a case that if you were actually serious about your personal security, you would not run video games on a computer that you use for anything else.
Yeah.
Because some of the anti-cheats are man-in-the-middles.
And it is based on...
keylogging literally everything you do.
Yeah, and it's a trust me bro model.
Some of them are literal rootkits.
Yeah.
I can't remember which cheat system it was, but it literally installs a new network adapter. And, stuff like that, and hooks into the Windows kernel and runs its system and stuff like that. And it's just trust me, bro.
Yeah.
It's just like...
Yeah, and that's the thing, and this is why they don't work on Linux. But again, it's easy to criticize these systems, but this is the thing about criticism, is we can criticize this, but at equal measure, we also have to say, well, okay, what are they supposed to do then? Now, I don't know the answer to that question, so I guess when I say, well, what are we supposed to do, is there an answer,
Yeah, bring back dedicated servers. Call of Duty 4 has functionally no anti-hack. Yeah, on PC, there was never a hacking problem.
Yeah, but
because
then
admins ran their servers.
Also, though, to an extent, ask the TF2 fandom how that's going right now.
TF2's slightly different kettle of fish.
What, because of its age?
Partially.
Yeah.
Also just because the admin controls that I have seen for TF2 are missing.
Yeah.
It seems like it's more of a problem of the fact of Valve don't want to give functional admin controls
Yeah.
to dedicated servers.
If they built a good dedicated server, then it could be managed. Yeah.
Because it was also the fact of obviously you could choose to share the CD key IDs of people you banned into the central server list.
Yeah.
And that could be shared amongst dedicated server admins as a ban list.
Yes.
And if you wanted to, you could enable it to ban everyone who had ever been banned in another server.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
it's just kind of a case of, obviously I realise I'm going off of this from Call of Duty 4.
Well,
and that's 15 bloody years old.
Yeah, but still,
also,
that's an example of a game that seemed to have this problem managed without rootkitting everyone's computer.
Yeah.
You know.
Because dedicated servers that were actually run with full admin control.
Yeah. I asked the question, well, if we're not going to rootkit your computer, then how are we supposed to stop hackers? Well, dedicated servers.
Yeah.
And that kills multiple birds with one stone, because dedicated servers solves a lot of other problems with modern multiplayer as well. But yeah.
It's also a similar reason why I think, obviously completely different, but like the Killing Floor 2 model works so well as well.
Yeah.
With that. You can run a dedicated server that at any time someone can take over effectively to run with their settings.
Yeah.
But it's all done through the game interface, and Tripwire are the people who are actually changing the game settings, not the end user.
Yeah.
So I think that balance is a very good balance. But at the same time, you can just sign into the server and just go, don't do that. I want these settings, and those are your settings, and that's it. So yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So yeah, but it's why SRVIO is kind of important, because it allows you to pass through a graphics card from your physical machine into the virtual machine and play at like 99.9% performance level sort of thing. So it's just stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Well, I think I've enjoyed this conversation in English. I'm just going to do one more quick pass through the chat. Blah, 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 blah. Stuff we've covered. One pass enough for memory? It depends. If you're having intermittent blue screen of deaths and you can't figure out what's causing it, I would probably go for 2 passes, just in case you're getting like one error in 2 passes, which can be that really awkward one that's just giving you that intermittent blue screen. However, if you're getting a blue screen every single day, I would expect that to be very easily detectable if it's memory. So yeah, it depends on the frequency. If you're looking for a once a month crash, you're going to need multiple passes. If you're looking for a once an hour crash, it's going to come up on the first pass if it's there.
It also depends on you might need to use a different memory tool to check it. Just the example I keep giving is you can have what seem like memory errors on Ryzen 7000 that are actually Infinity Fabric errors, and they don't show up in memtest, but they show up in, say, Y-Cruncher. So it's kind of a case of you can sometimes have a different part of the subsystem that's actually the issue. So you need to use different tools.
Yeah, that being the case, then I'll caveat that advice with remember that your memtest run is just a part of your information gathering process. Like Lead Farmer has said, oh, check Expo, check XMP, blah blah blah. We don't know. We have no context for this question, so I don't know if any of that is relevant. However, the point is, memtest is not just this file, do this, and it tells you if your memory is a problem or not. It's one of several methods to gather information about if you have a memory-related issue. I think that was a reasonably safe answer. I've enjoyed this conversation with no cider because hangover recovery. Yes.
Indeed.
Thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. Next week, we will be back with things and special guests.
We will also probably be starting quite a lot later.
Yes, because we are going to be visiting the RMC, the cave, in the morning, and we'll probably be starting late. I don't know what our start time is. At some point closer to the weekend, I will try and put an earlier schedule in, but it's going to be loose. We're basically just going to start as and when we get back in and we get set up. But it's likely to be... so we normally start at 3:45. I would anticipate that we're going to be at least an hour late. Minimum, kind of thing.
Yeah, that is my assumption as well.
All right. Okay, past that, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you for the super chats. And thanks for being part of the conversation. I will see you next week. And yeah, if you want to hear more of my dumb voice, I will be live on Twitch tomorrow at twitch.tv/NetherSam. I'm playing Super Metroid at the moment. And that's it. No bot. Yeah, I can't be asked. Also, I need the bathroom, so I really want to hit stop streaming. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Toodles.
Yeah, now would be a good time to insert ads. Oh, that reminds me as well. I'm having to manually switch off ads because it keeps turning on mid-rolls on the VOD and massively front-loading them. So anyone who's watching the VOD is getting like 5 adverts in half an hour. And I'm like, oh, that was not our intent. So sorry if that's happened to anyone.
I thought we turned off the ads.
So did I. Apparently not.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
I'll check out.
There's no way of mass turning them off. You've got to do it one by one.
Yeah.
So I just turn them off for the 5 most recent. However, also, if you're hearing me say this, that means you watched all the way through to the end, which means the adverts were probably fairly balanced for you anyway. They front load because most people tune out after 30 minutes. Anyway, thank you very much. Goodbye.